I never dreamed that a globally notorious fugitive like me would be reborn into a famous military and law enforcement family. My dad and grandpa are both top officials. Grandma is a renowned criminal investigator. Even mom is a world-famous medical examiner. Being reborn into this family comes with serious pressure. But I know every criminal trick in the book. So when I faced a decade-old serial murder case, a bizarre elevator murder, and even a cannibal case that shocked the world, I proved to everyone that I'm more than the heir to a powerful family. I rule both crime and criminal investigation. I rubbed my brow, set down my fork, and headed outside. Just as I reached the door, Mom rushed in. She saw my breakfast and smiled. Not bad. Ethan, you've finally dropped those bad habits. Come here. You deserve a reward. A reward? I leaned closer. Instead, she grabbed my cheek and twisted it. Mom, what kind of reward is this? Sorry, I didn't have time to get you a gift. I owe you one. There's a major case in Crestfall. I have to head back soon. She smiled and turned toward the stairs. In her rush, she dropped her files. I picked them up and teased her. No wonder Dad says you becoming a medical examiner is the world's greatest miracle. You're exactly as careless as he says. Mom blushed and snapped. You little punk. Now you're mocking me? Forget it. I'm in a hurry. She turned away, but I grabbed her hand. While picking up the files, I spotted a crime scene photo. I frowned. Mom, this case isn't simple. Chloe looked at me in surprise. What would you know? Go do your own work. School starts in a few days. Go study. Without Chloe's reminder, I'd have forgotten. I'm only a 17-year-old high school student now. I'll be a senior this fall. But I couldn't look away from the photo. I studied it. This killer is seriously twisted. The victim was already dead, head against the floor. Yet, after killing her, he kept using the knife to slash her body over and over, especially the front. That's personal. Chloe gave a wry smile and shook her head. You don't understand. This killer, you think he's a repeat offender, don't you? You were heading upstairs to get the files on that serial case from 10 years ago. Chloe's eyes went wide. How did you know? Mom, you keep organized files on all kinds of cases. And that torture murder series from 10 years ago still haunts you and Dad. Given this victim's condition and your rush upstairs, it wasn't hard to figure out. Not bad. You're more observant than I thought. Then tell me why you think the killer hated her. Every piece of evidence in the old serial case showed the killer chose his victims on impulse. By your logic, these knife wounds alone should rule out the old killer. I never said the old killer didn't do this. Maybe he really did have a grudge against her. I smiled and left it at that. Chloe watched me walk away, then hurried over and grabbed my wrist. Ethan, I need your help with something. With what? Come to the hospital and examine the body. Chloe dragged me all the way there. At the entrance, a mob of reporters surrounded us. Professor Whitmore is here. Professor Whitmore, do you believe this torture killer is the same person behind the serial torture murders? 10 years ago, Professor Whitmore, the same kind of murder has returned after 10 years. You were the lead medical examiner back then, and it remains the only case where you found no trace of the killer. Do you have any comment? Once they had us surrounded, the questions wouldn't stop. They fired off one after another. Chloe frowned. Autopsies were her strength. Reporters weren't. The reporters weren't wrong. Chloe's career did have one blemish. She was at the height of her fame, yet that serial case left her completely stumped. Now she was starting to lose her temper. Then a hand reached out from behind her. I stepped in front of Chloe and shoved aside everyone blocking our path. The murder comes first. Your story comes second. The case just broke. What could you possibly report? Every second you waste could help the killer escape. Move. I glared at them and pulled Chloe straight through. The reporters froze, then finally came to. Who was that kid? Her student? He's got some nerve. That's Ethan Hayes, the Hayes heir. He was protecting his mother. So what? Exactly. Ethan was right. The murder comes first. The story comes second. The case just broke. All those questions only slowed them down. By then, Chloe and I had reached the morgue. Chloe opened the door. Several officers and medical examiners were inside, documenting the body's condition. When they saw us, they straightened up and came over. Professor Whitmore. Oh, Ethan's here too? Everyone was stunned to see me. I simply nodded and walked to the victim. I scanned her body from head to toe. A few officers tried to speak, but Chloe shook her head to stop them. Less than 30 seconds later, I looked away. Where's her family? Mr. Hayes, the victim moved here from out of town. We've contacted her family. They're on their way. An officer answered. I asked another question. Did she live alone? Chloe answered. Her name was Natalie Brooks. She was 27 and managed a design firm. She had 2 close friends in Crestfall and lived with her fiancé. They were very close. I said, I see, and put on gloves. Everyone stared in disbelief. Even Chloe looked stunned. She knew better than anyone that I'd never handled a body. Most people are scared when they see a corpse. But I looked ready to examine it myself. One of Chloe's medical examiners stepped forward. "Mr. Hayes, we've already examined the body." I ignored him and reached out to grip one of the bloody knife wounds. As everyone watched in shock, I used 2 fingers to pull back the flesh around the wound. "Ethan, don't push yourself. You've never examined a body. You could get sick." Chloe sounded worried. I released the wound. Time of death was between 3:30 and 4 a.m. The chest wound was fatal. That single stab killed her. The weapon was a dagger about 5 inches long and 3/4 of an inch wide. It was dull, probably from heavy use. That's why the cuts show tissue drag. The later slashes run down to her legs and grow steadily shallower. When I finished, I found everyone staring at me. I smiled. I walked over to Chloe. "Mom, what's wrong?" Chloe reached out and rubbed my face hard. "Something's wrong. Are you really my Ethan?" I rolled my eyes. Who else would I be? No way. My Ethan's supposed to be a little slow. How could you study her for a few seconds and identify every injury perfectly? Chloe was still in shock, but I turned to the veteran officer. "Officer Grant, please bring in everyone close to the victim to view the body and say goodbye." Harold took a deep breath. His expression turned serious. "All right, I'll handle it." After Harold left, I stepped out too. The moment I was gone, the officers and examiners started talking. Ethan really did grow up surrounded by experts. That examination just now was incredible. I'm honestly blown away. Aside from Professor Whitmore and Miles Bennett, I've never met anyone who could look at a body for mere seconds and identify the weapon, fatal wound, and time of death. "Professor Whitmore, your son is a genius." Smiling in front of a body might seem inappropriate, but Chloe had long grown used to death. Right now, she felt nothing but pride. After all, what mother doesn't want her child to excel? Chloe answered them with a smile. Before long, Harold brought in everyone close to the victim. Her 2 best friends and fiancé entered together. All 3 wore the same expression when they saw Natalie. After a stunned pause, they broke down. Her fiancé took it hardest. He finally collapsed to the floor, completely numb. I stayed outside watching all 3. Then I entered. Chloe knew what I was doing. She whispered, "Are you convinced this killer has nothing to do with the one from 10 years ago?" Of course not. The prime suspect is still the killer from that old torture murder series. But everyone connected to the victim is also a suspect. I walked up to the 3 of them. I looked at Natalie's fiancé. "How long were you together?" After several seconds, he slowly looked up. When he saw I was just a teenager, he lowered his head again. I shrugged and turned to the women. "What about you? How long did you know her?" "We knew Natalie for 4 or 5 years. We used to live together. Then Natalie and Daniel Foster got engaged. So we moved out." One woman answered. The other added, "I can't believe this happened to Natalie. Who could do something so cruel?" Natalie's fiancé, Daniel, finally spoke. His voice trembled. "It's my fault. I should have stayed with her last night. Why did I leave? If I'd stayed with her until she got home, this wouldn't have happened." I crouched in front of him. Had she been busy lately? She didn't leave work until after 3 a.m. She'd been working on a design. She finally made a breakthrough a few days ago, so she'd been working overtime to finish it. I kept telling her to slow down, but she was too driven to listen. Daniel grew agitated again. "It's my fault. Why didn't I insist?" I stood up. "Officer Grant, send them home to rest. I'm not leaving. I'm staying with Natalie. We were getting married in October. It was only a few months away. Why did this happen?" Daniel screamed hysterically. The officers could only sigh. Even Chloe, who had seen countless deaths, let out a long breath. What a tragedy. I watched it all calmly. I committed countless horrific crimes and drawn warrants from the world's top agencies. As a former king of crime, no one understood a criminal's mind better than me. What you see may be real or it may be an act. I signaled the officers. They helped Daniel and Natalie's friends out. Chloe came over. "Ethan, did you notice something?" Without answering, I reached into Chloe's case file and took out the crime scene photos again. They were clear and covered every angle. I laid them out in order. After studying them for 2 minutes, I said, "I'm certain this is separate from the serial case 10 years ago." Chloe and the officers were stunned again. "Mr. Hayes, the method and level of brutality are identical to the old murders, right?" The words "I'm back" were carved into her back. The old killer left the same kind of gruesome mark. The only difference is that this time, it's a message. Before, he used numbers. Every victim in the old torture murder series was a woman. Each had a mark carved into her back. The first was marked 9 to 1, then 9 to 2 through 9 to 9. Then the killings stopped. I sneered at their objections. "Are you sure the brutality is really the same? At least 5 wounds on Natalie. took the full blade. None of the old wounds did. The old victims were slashed at random, yet every cut was nearly the same depth. They only broke the skin and flesh. That means the old killer was highly skilled with knives. His job probably involved blades. An officer blurted out, "Even if these wounds vary in depth, that isn't enough to rule him out." The old killer was smart. He was playing a game with the police, and even the medical examiners. This one is just a clumsy copycat. As I spoke, I reached into Chloe's file and pulled out an old photo. It showed one old victim's back. I pointed at her bound wrists. "I'll let you spot the difference yourselves." Then I headed out. Chloe called after me, "Ethan, where are you going?" I grinned. "I think I know where to find the killer." I went straight to Natalie's company. Her body wasn't found until around dawn, so no one at work knew. Their manager had been murdered. I opened the doors to Northstar Design. The workday was just starting, but everyone at their desks still looked half asleep. They stared at Chloe and me, and at the two officers with us. One employee stood and approached with a smile. "Officers, how can we help you?" "We're here to ask about your manager, Natalie Brooks." I answered. "Oh, you're here for Ms. Brooks. I'll get her. She's always the first one here. She must be in her office." I stopped him. "Don't bother. She's dead." The employee and everyone else stared in horror. They cried out, "What? Ms. Brooks is dead? How is that possible? She was fine yesterday." "Yeah. How could this happen? Ms. Brooks even stayed late last night. Her fiancé, Daniel Foster, was with her the whole time." Cries of shock filled the office. The quiet office erupted into chaos. I scanned every face. An officer behind me feared we were wasting time. He called out, "Everyone, calm down. We're here to investigate. Has Natalie acted strangely lately? Did she have conflicts with anyone here? Never mind. Anyone absent lately, step forward." I cut in as soon as the officer finished. The officers and Chloe stared at me in surprise. I wanted to question those who'd been away. Chloe whispered, "Ethan, it can't be that simple. The killer left no trace at the scene. That means he knows how to evade an investigation. Why would he make himself look suspicious?" I smiled calmly. It was just a thought. 3 people soon stepped forward. 1 man and 2 women, all young. Each looked shocked and saddened. One woman already had tears in her eyes. I approached her, but before I could speak, she burst into tears. "No, Natalie can't be dead. She was so kind. How could she die?" Tears streamed down her face. I handed her a tissue. "You and Natalie were close?" "I'm her assistant. I've been sick. She insisted I stay home and rest. I felt better today, so I came in." I never expected this. I could tell she was genuinely sick. She kept coughing, and her voice was badly congested. I nodded and asked nothing else. I moved on to the young man. He took a deep breath. "I've been away on business. I just got back today." "And you?" I asked the last woman. There was something different about her. Chloe had barely taken her eyes off her. When we announced Natalie's death, she looked shocked, but also briefly pleased. That flash of pleasure quickly vanished. But it couldn't escape Chloe's trained eye. Her instincts told her. This woman had a grudge against Natalie. I studied the attractive woman. "Why were you away?" "Something came up back home, so I took leave." "For how long?" "1 week." She answered. I smiled knowingly. 7 days? That's quite a while. "Was there some emergency back home?" "No. I was tired and needed a break." She answered. I nodded and turned away. 7 days gives someone enough time to study another killer's methods. It's more than enough, at least for a passable imitation. Everyone stared at the woman in shock. An assistant manager cried out, "Officer, what do you mean?" Natalie was found bound, head down and hips raised. Her back was marked in blood. Anyone who's lived in Crestfall for over a decade should know what that means. A middle-aged man stared wide-eyed and gasped. "The serial torture murders?" "Yes, the serial torture murders from 10 years ago." My voice turned chilling. "Your manager's body was staged. It matched all 9 victims from 10 years ago." The woman who'd looked briefly pleased shuddered at once. The pleasure vanished from her eyes. When she met my gaze, she began to stammer. "Why are you staring at me? I didn't kill her." I sneered. "But you did have a grudge against Natalie. She slapped me once, but I wouldn't kill her for that." She raised her chin. "I said you had a grudge. I never said you killed her. No need to get worked up." Nearly everyone turned to stare at her. She grew more panicked, glancing around. Chloe came over and whispered, "You suspect her?" "I'm just surprised." When we announced Natalie's death, she looked genuinely pleased. For a moment I thought she was the killer, but now I understand everything. Then I turned to the sick woman. "I almost forgot. What's your name?" She froze, then answered hoarsely, "I'm Megan Price." "All right, Megan. Please come with us to the hospital morgue." I said with a smile. "Why me?" I had no grudge against Natalie. My smile grew stranger. I never said you did. You said you two were close. You should go say goodbye. I'll go with you. She finally nodded. I smiled and suddenly grabbed Megan's hand. Everyone else may by your helpless act, but rest assured you're the killer. The office went dead silent. Every eye locked on Megan and me. Someone finally snapped out of it. Officer, you must be mistaken. Megan couldn't have killed Ms. Brooks. Didn't you say this matched the old serial murders? Then the old killer must have done it. Murder requires motive. Megan had none. Right? Megan's scared of bugs, and Ms. Brooks helped her. When gambling left her in debt, Ms. Brooks paid it off. Her co-workers rushed to defend her. I turned to the employee who mentioned gambling. She gambles? Yes. She got hooked on online gambling and ran up a lot of debt. When her creditors came here, Ms. Brooks bailed her out. The employee froze. I sneered inwardly and fixed my eyes on Megan. I hope this isn't the farmer and the snake all over again. Take her to the hospital. Send another team to search her home. I gave the order. Megan went pale. I'm only gonna say goodbye to Natalie. Why are you treating me like a killer? You failed to catch him 10 years ago. Now he's killed again, and instead of chasing him, you're targeting me. You know quite a lot about the old case. I narrowed my eyes. Chloe became alert too. Megan blurted out, what's wrong with what I said? If you'd caught the killer, Natalie would still be alive. Still denying it? I stepped closer. Those calluses are fresh. You've been doing manual work lately. You're an assistant. Does this job require heavy lifting? She tried to argue, but I didn't let her. The fresh calluses are one thing. Second, when we said Natalie's death perfectly matched the old murders, why did you suddenly relax? Especially when we focused on this woman. All I saw in your eyes was gloating. I knew criminal psychology too well. My past life taught me. The killer is often the last person anyone suspects. Only a criminal tries that hard to clear herself. Megan came in sobbing so hard. Even Chloe was moved. But I don't trust tears. Emotion clouds judgment. Megan's lips trembled. I never felt that way. You misread me. I smirked and told a coworker. Call Daniel Foster. Ask if Megan recently tried to borrow money from Natalie. Daniel answered, sounding exhausted. Yes, she asked 2 weeks ago, then several more times. But Natalie always refused. She said if Megan couldn't quit, she'd have to fire her. I calmly thanked him. Daniel gasped, you suspect Megan? Wasn't this the same killer from 10 years ago? We never said it was the same killer. Only that the cases were similar. I stared at Megan and spoke slowly. Can I take that to mean? She repeatedly refused to lend you money, and you knew she planned to fire you, so you held a grudge and killed her? Megan's eyes widened, her lips trembling. After several seconds, she finally said, I did resent Natalie, but then I realized she was right. Besides, where's your evidence? You'd convict me on guesses? She even gave a faint smile. Relax, we'll have evidence soon. It's only been a few hours. You couldn't have erased every trace. Natalie died after 3:30 a.m. It's only 8 or 9 now. She needed time to cover her tracks. If she was truly this sick, she couldn't have killed anyone, much less copied the old killer's methods. I met her gaze. Forget the hospital. We're going straight to your place. The team there should have found something by now. Megan clenched her jaw. That made me even more certain. I gave the order. Take her. Megan lived only 10 minutes from the office. She was unusually quiet on the way. When we reached her building, 2 police cars were waiting. A middle-aged officer saw us and hurried over. Professor Whitmore, Mr. Hayes, you shouldn't have to keep running around like this. Chloe shook her head. Helping solve cases is my duty. Did the Bureau send word? The Metropolitan Police Bureau issued an order. Because this case closely matches the old murders, we have 1 week to solve it. And, he paused. And what? At today's meeting, Mayor Warren stressed that if another murder like this happens, every Bureau division will be held accountable. Chloe gave a cold laugh. We won't need a week. We'll solve it today. Everyone was stunned. Today? More precisely, within the hour. I looked at Megan. Right, Ms. Price? She stayed silent. An officer came down from upstairs, reporting. We found nothing suspicious in the suspect's home. No murder weapon. Not even a knife. Megan finally smiled. Officer, do you believe me now? Relax. Let's go sit down inside. I spoke casually. By the way, do you have water? All this talking made me thirsty. Chloe smiled faintly. The Hayes family never loses heart in front of a suspect. Yes. Megan answered quietly. We took her up to the 4th floor. Officers were already searching the apartment, but had left everything in place. I spotted the water cooler and poured Chloe a glass first. Then I carried my own glass around the apartment. I stopped at the bathroom and stared at the floor. Chloe came closer. Ethan, what are you looking at? I pointed down. Mom, isn't there a lot of water on the floor? Miss Price, do you usually shower early? Megan's eyes darted. Yes. Why? Now water in a bathroom is suspicious? The water isn't the problem. The problem is you're this sick, yet still showered this morning. Brave of you. Then I opened the apartment's only bedroom door. It was a small one-bedroom. She clearly didn't live extravagantly. Maybe gambling took all her money. But when I opened the door, my eyes narrowed. Inside Megan's bedroom stood a battered, life-size rag doll. It looked heavily handled. Get me some rope, I called out at once. Megan staggered. Chloe seemed to realize something, but said nothing. Though confused, an officer handed me rope. I took it and lifted the doll. I wrapped the rope along the faint marks on its body. Megan turned white as a sheet. When I pulled the doll's arms behind its back, how is that possible? Someone gasped. Why wouldn't it be? I answered coldly without stopping. The doll slowly took on the same bound pose as Natalie. Before I even finished, Megan suddenly screamed hysterically, "Stop tying it! Stop!" Megan collapsed to the floor, sobbing. I crouched and looked at her. Anything left to say? Why did you suspect me from the start? She looked up, deathly pale. How did you spot the marks on the doll at a glance? And recreate those knots? Chloe smiled knowingly. Case closed. Still crouching, I answered calmly. Simple. Natalie helped more than just you at work. When I announced her death, everyone looked shocked first. You alone started crying immediately. What's so strange about that? Her voice was weak. You showed no surprise. The calluses on your hands made me more certain. Once they mentioned your gambling, I knew beyond doubt you were the killer. I paused. Sadly, this really is the farmer and the snake. I may have been a criminal in my past life, but I never betrayed someone who helped me. Megan's fragile expression twisted into a vicious grin. The farmer and the snake? She only helped me once. I paid her back. Why couldn't she help me one last time? Was she really going to watch my creditors beat me to death? If I was going to die, she was coming with me. Her face contorted with rage. I offered her something when I begged. I gave her all my design ideas. And what did she do? She took them, then planned to fire me. Didn't she deserve to die? I was surprised. Maybe it was coincidence or fate. Her phone rang just then. Answer it. I said, you're still allowed to answer your phone. Hello? Who is this? She answered. A pleasant female voice came through. Hello. Is this Megan Price from North Star Design? We're with the Brightline Design Awards Review Board. Your submission meets our requirements. Please report to the venue within 3 days to compete for a finalist spot. Megan froze. Chloe and I were stunned too. Hello? Ms. Price. Did you hear me? Hello? Ms. Price? Megan trembled all over. She couldn't speak. Tears poured down her face. She screamed hoarsely. Why didn't you tell me? Why? I stood up. My voice was cold. As far as I'm concerned, you deserve to die. But if you ever get out, spend the rest of your life making amends. Chloe signaled the officers to cuff her. Megan stood and asked quietly, I really was the snake. Ethan, did you know everything all along? You just didn't have time to get rid of the doll, right? You got sick by dousing yourself in cold water after the murder and blasting the AC all night. Am I right? I asked. Her lips parted. Then she silently nodded. I started planning after she first refused me, and my creditors beat me. That's when it began. Her voice grew calm. I dug up everything on the old case and spent over 2 weeks learning the method. 2 days ago, I asked her again. She tore into me. That's when I decided to do it. After killing her last night, I came home and soaked myself so no one would suspect me. Then I cranked up the AC. And the doll? You were right. I practiced the restraints on it for 2 weeks. It was too big to throw out unnoticed. Besides, I thought no one would ever suspect me. By then, I'd heard enough. Officer Grant, take her away. I turned around. Mom, you can schedule the press conference. Announce that last night's torture murder is solved. Wait too long and people may start doubting the Hayes family. Chloe nodded proudly. The officers escorted Megan out. At the door, she stopped. Ethan, everyone, if I ever leave prison alive, I'll make amends. If you ever visit Natalie's grave, please tell her I'm sorry. She seemed ready to say more, but swallowed the words. Once she was gone, everyone left in the room applauded. Chloe gave me a thumbs up, her eyes shining. Son, you made me proud today. Only later did I learn that after I took Megan away, the mood in my father Grant Hayes' office was grim. Case files lay before him as he scanned the worried faces. Let's hear your thoughts. My father spoke calmly. The Crestfall Metropolitan Police Bureau promised the public answers within a week. As he spoke, a faint smile crept onto his face. Someone immediately said, Martin Caldwell really couldn't wait. Fair enough. It happened in their jurisdiction. They have the authority. My father didn't seem bothered. Solving the case comes first. What's your analysis? A man in glasses spoke. This case is both complicated and simple. It's complicated because it perfectly matches the old serial torture murders. Simple because the old killer may be back. He paused and looked at my father. Secretary Hayes, you were Crestfall's police commissioner when the old murders happened. For this case to resurface now, my father waved him off. Stick to the case. You were all on my original team. No one knows that case better than us. By day's end, this morning's murder will rock the city. If we miss the deadline, the entire law enforcement system will pay. His expression turned grave. But after all that talk, no one offered anything useful. As they traded helpless looks, my father's heart sank. Maybe years of comfort had dulled their old fire. Just as frustration set in, someone knocked. His assistant opened the door, and an officer rushed in excitedly. Secretary Hayes, great news. What's the rush? Can't you see we're in a meeting? Someone snapped. The officer answered awkwardly. Sorry, I got carried away. We just received word. This morning's torture murder has been solved. The office fell silent. Seconds later, everyone shot to their feet. Their eyes went wide. You're serious? They caught the killer from 10 years ago? Finally, that bastard's behind bars. My father lit up, then noticed the officer's uneasy look. What is it? Was there a complication? Yes, sir. It wasn't the old killer. Impossible. The restraints, the victim's condition, the bloody message. Everything points to the old case. Exactly. We know those restraints too well. No one else has used them in decades. We can't be wrong. My father was equally baffled. Just then, a proud voice came from outside. Just as I thought. The method fooled all of you too. While everyone else was fooled, he alone saw the truth. Grant Hayes, your family, raised one remarkable son. Only my mother, Chloe Whitmore, dared call my father by his full name. Chloe, what do you mean? Ethan was involved? My father looked utterly lost. Chloe nodded firmly. The killer's restraints only looked similar. We studied the body for ages. Ethan spotted the difference in 3 seconds. Then he caught the killer in just over an hour. Everyone was stunned. They'd studied those details for hours, yet someone saw through them in seconds. They'd used every tool and years of experience. Yet someone caught the killer in just over an hour. That someone was me. After the shock passed, my father's laughter filled the office. The others felt embarrassed, but were happy for him. That's the Hayes family for you. Ethan is only 17, right? Chloe smiled and nodded. The man took a breath and gave a thumbs up. Incredible. I'm the first to admit it. But Chloe, if it wasn't the old killer, who was it? Natalie Brooks's assistant, Megan Price. A completely ordinary-looking woman. They were stunned again. All morning, they'd never once suspected Natalie's co-workers. An outsider sees what insiders miss. Now that's an outsider's perspective. My father immediately ordered, notify Martin Caldwell, hold a press conference and brief the public. Chloe, have Ethan attend. He stood tall, but Chloe chuckled and shook her head. Grant Hayes, my boy said the Hayes family can wait 10 years to settle a score. We still have a full week. The honor the Hayes family lost back then, he's taking it back. My father inhaled sharply, his voice full of disbelief. You mean Ethan plans to dig up the killer from 10 years ago? I went home and headed straight to the study. Martha Reed called me to eat. I answered and asked her not to disturb me. I found the old case file. It was massive, but I read it carefully. September 16, 2007. At 6 a.m., a woman's body was found in Willowbend Park, Eastgate District. Claire Sutton, 23. Head down, hips raised. Fatal blunt force trauma to the head. September 18, 2007. Sophie Dawson, found in a landscape strip on Lantern Avenue, Brookside District. Cause of death, asphyxiation. September 29, 2007. Lauren Pierce, found beneath Eastgate Bridge. Sexually assaulted, then dumped in the river. I read it all in one sitting and closed the file. Then I wrote down every clue. 10 years had passed. Investigative methods had changed completely. If these murders happened today, they might have been solved quickly. I lost myself in my notes, until Mom brought in lunch. Mom, why are you home? Martha called and said you hadn't come down to eat. She was afraid to interrupt you. As she spoke, she noticed my notes. Her eyes widened. Where did you get this psychological profile of the killer? I smiled. It's simple. Compare the bloody markings on each victim's back. Look, from the start, he planned to kill 9 people. That's why he marked the first victim 9-1. But the photo shows several shaky strokes. He was terrified during his first murder. The second victim's marking is much steadier. As the body count rose, his writing became careless. Why? Because by the 9th murder, he still hadn't been caught. He saw himself as a king, above every law. He went from terrified to comfortable, then became arrogant and contemptuous of the police. That's how his mindset changed from victim 1 to victim 9. And he stopped after exactly 9. So we can overturn one old conclusion. Mom hadn't caught on. Which conclusion? The killer didn't choose his victims at random. He may be twisted, but he had a clear purpose. These 9 victims, directly or indirectly, must be connected. As I finished writing, Mom immediately objected. Impossible. None of the 9 knew one another. How could they be connected? Besides, do you know who reached that conclusion? Of course, Dad. But let me ask you this. Does that mean Dad couldn't be wrong? She still looked unconvinced, so I continued. Mom, it's obvious. If he were merely a serial killer, even if he planned 9 victims, he would have written only 9 or 8. There'd be no reason to mark the first one 9 to 1. He chose both the number and the targets from the start. All 9 victims must be connected to him. My reasoning was too clear to dismiss. To her, Dad was the finest investigative mind around. But my logic held. Everything pointed to one conclusion. The 9 victims were connected. So what will you do next? She let out a long breath. Visit all 9 families. Investigate them again, and dig into everything. It's been 10 years. They may not all be in Crestfall. We'll find whoever we can. 3 families should be enough. I got up, but after 2 steps, Mom grabbed me and glared. Even if the sky falls, my boy eats first. Finish your lunch. Then I'll go with you. You're not leaving until that plate is clean. After lunch, Chloe and I went to check the address records. A lot had changed in 10 years. 3 families had left Crestfall for good. Most of the other 6 had moved. Crestfall had grown rapidly, and some once comfortable families were now worth tens of millions, even over 100 million. Our first stop was the home of the first victim, Claire Sutton. They now lived in a suburban development outside Crestfall. I rang the bell. A woman nearing 60 answered. Who are you? What do you want? She looked confused. Mom smiled. Ma'am, don't you remember me? I'm Chloe Whitmore. The woman froze, then her eyes reddened. You're Dr. Whitmore? She quickly invited us inside. The home was well furnished. She seemed comfortable. We sat down. She brought tea, looking hesitant. I got straight to the point. Ma'am, we're here about what happened to your daughter 10 years ago. She swayed, her voice trembling. After 10 years? Is there a new lead? We have a new theory. I just need to ask a few questions. Just tell me what you know. She nodded nervously. Did your daughter Claire know the later victim, Sophie Dawson? No. Did you or your husband know Sophie or Lauren Pierce's parents? No. The families met after the murders, but we weren't close. It was the answer we expected. Mom offered a few gentle words. I changed tack. Ma'am, do you still have any of Claire's things? May I see them? She shook her head. Aside from a few photos, her belongings were either buried with her or burned. I couldn't keep them. It hurt too much to look. It was understandable. Some people preserve keepsakes. Others can't bear the memories. We didn't stay long. There were no useful leads. As we left, Margaret Sutton gripped Mom's hand. Dr. Whitmore, be honest. Can this case still be solved after 10 years? Mom didn't know what to say, so I answered. Don't worry, ma'am. You'll hear from us within a week. We'll find the real killer. 1 week. Her weary expression suddenly brightened. All right, if you can find him, then these 10 years weren't wasted. After leaving, Mom sounded reproachful. Why promise that? We found nothing today. Not exactly, I said. At least we ruled out a feud involving their parents. Now we need to find what connected Claire Sutton, Sophie Dawson, Lauren Pierce, and the other victims. We went downstairs. But before we got in the car, Margaret hurried after us. Dr. Whitmore, wait. She ran over and pulled a store card from her pocket. My daughter left this behind. She'd loaded quite a bit of money onto it. That's why we didn't bury it with her. I just remembered. See if it helps. I took the card, studied it, then smiled. Ma'am, this helps. After Margaret went back upstairs, Mom stared at me clutching the card like treasure. Ethan, what's so special about that card? Mom, review every victim's identity and occupation. That was all I said. I let her solve it. About 15 minutes into the drive, it hit her. She snatched the card. Gold letters across it read, Grand Arcade Department Store. The department store opened 15 years ago. Online shopping forced it out of business 3 years ago. But that old store had become a key lead. The third victim, Lauren Pierce, had worked there. Calvin, take us to the old Grand Arcade site. I gave the order before Mom could say more. Mom finally understood and laughed in annoyance. You little brat. You figured it out the moment you saw the card. And you made me guess. You made us drive around for 15 extra minutes. You know I'm busy. Figuring it out yourself was worth the extra time. I smiled. No one had ever realized. That Grand Arcade connected Claire Sutton and Lauren Pierce. 10 years ago, the store was thriving. Now we only need to learn whether, before the first murder, something happened there that connects to the killings. If so, we can narrow the suspect pool dramatically. Mom listened, then reached over and pinched my face. She shook it side to side in disbelief. Is this really my baby boy? Tell me, if the Hayes family's reputation weren't at stake, were you planning to hide your talent forever? I only smiled. I can ignore anything else. But embarrass my mom. and you'll answer to me. Mom was overjoyed. She pulled me into a tight hug. I'm so happy. My son can finally protect me. The car fell quiet. Soon, we reached the old Grand Arcade site. It was now called Summit Plaza, an all-in-one shopping and entertainment complex. After we got out, Mom said, the owner has changed, but Victor Langford, Grand Arcade's former manager, still runs the place. He may have answers. We went straight to his office. Victor opened the door and greeted us warmly. Professor Whitmore, Mr. Hayes. It's a pleasure. Once we sat down, he looked curious. I'm honored you came in person. Please tell me what you need. I'll tell you everything I know. Mom got straight to the point. We need to ask about something. Before September 16, 2007, did anything major happen at Grand Arcade? Victor froze, then gave an awkward laugh. Grand Arcade? That was ages ago. Anything before September 16th is a huge range. How could I remember? Fair enough. It had been 10 years. Remembering wouldn't be easy, but I watched his eyes and sneered. So you can't remember Mr. Langford? I don't recall anything major happening there in 2007. My smile turned colder. Fine. We're formally requiring your cooperation. Compile every noteworthy incident at Grand Arcade. From 2007. Deliver it to Secretary Hayes' office by 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. Leave nothing out. Include every incident, no matter how small. Victor's eyes widened. Mr. Hayes, what do you mean? A complete record of everything. Your eyes tell me you remembered something, but don't want to say it. I stood up. In that case, we'll do it the hard way. Secretary Hayes expects your report by 9 tomorrow. I signaled Mom and turned to leave. Victor panicked. Dr. Whitmore, Mr. Hayes, please don't rush. It's been so long. I need time to think. He feared offending us. He'd never dare cross the Hayes family. If the Hayes family got angry, this plaza could face non-stop inspections, until it was forced to close. Mom didn't understand why I'd suddenly turned hostile. Victor's excuse sounded reasonable. After all this time, remembering wouldn't be easy. But whatever I did, she was on my side. I stopped and looked back. Mr. Langford, I've made myself clear. This concerns the torture murders from 10 years ago. If you're withholding information and we find out, you'll face legal consequences. I turned away again. Victor clenched his jaw. Fine, I'll tell you. Before September 16th, 10 years ago, something major did happen at Grand Arcade. It involved me. I spun around. What happened? How were you involved? On September 10th, 2007, there was a fatal elevator accident at Grand Arcade. The victim was my son. His eyes instantly reddened. His face twisted with rage. Mom and I froze. September 10th was 6 days before the first torture murder. Something major really had happened at Grand Arcade. A fatal elevator accident? What happened? I pressed him. Lost in the painful memory, Victor answered weakly. It was the weekend. My wife was busy, so I brought our son to the store. I never thought he'd play on the escalator while I was distracted. Then it malfunctioned and pulled him in. His voice began to shake. Mr. Hayes, his head, it was crushed. His brains splattered all over the machinery. By the end, he looked like a cornered animal, his eyes burning with rage. I'm sorry. Victor lowered his head as if he hadn't heard. I watched him for a long moment, then sighed. I'm sorry, Mr. Langford. I didn't know. He looked up with red eyes and forced a laugh. Anything else you or Dr. Whitmore want to know? His smile held resentment, as if asking, was reopening my wound fun? We left his office without another word. Back in the car, Mom saw me thinking, Ethan, what's on your mind? I'm wondering how 6 days could connect Victor Langford, his son, Claire Sutton, Sophie Dawson, and Lauren Pierce. Mom's eyes widened. You think Victor is the killer? No. Anyone tied to the old case is a suspect. That includes Victor and everyone at Grand Arcade back then. I answered gravely. I'm only wondering whether 6 days was enough for him to devise such an elaborate murder plan. I start by suspecting everyone, then eliminate them one by one. Whoever remains is the killer. The old case file had plenty of theories, but no one investigated Grand Arcade. This may be a new lead or the right one. Mom, find out which former Grand Arcade executives still live in Crestfall. Most importantly, determine whether Claire Sutton and Sophie Dawson were there during the accident. If any footage exists, even better, we'll probably need to visit the police bureau. I think footage was taken, but I don't know if it still exists. Then what are we waiting for? Let's go now. The driver sped up. But Mom looked uneasy. You really want to go there? That's Martin Caldwell's turf. Aren't you afraid of tipping him off? Wherever power exists, conflict follows. Martin himself was no match for the Hayes family, but the family backing him rivaled ours. Both sides often undermined each other. I understood Mom's concern, but smiled confidently. Mom, remember we're investigating the torture murders from 10 years ago. Martin doesn't know we've caught Natalie's killer. So why not go now? Mom paused, then smiled sheepishly. We soon reached the bureau. Many officers knew Mom and stood to greet her. Word naturally reached Martin Caldwell. He finally appeared with a broad smile. Professor Whitmore, Ethan. What brings you here? Did you find a new lead in this morning's murder? He immediately pressed us about the morning case. Mom gave him a hollow smile. We're here for more detailed records. On the torture murders from 10 years ago. Your bureau still has them, right, Commissioner Caldwell? Of course. Every case handled by this bureau, large or small, is archived. But finding a 10-year-old file won't be easy. You can ask in the records room. As long as you're willing to search, the whole bureau will gladly assist. He waved grandly, acting very generous. But this was the digital age. The records room remained, but most files had been digitized. Searching the paper files could take forever. Mom's expression darkened. Commissioner Caldwell, can't we use the computers? I'm afraid not. Our entire system is being upgraded today. It's temporarily offline. You're welcome to wait. Mom tried to argue, but I smiled. No need. We'll search the records room ourselves. Mr. Hayes, Professor Whitmore has clearance. You don't. Martin smiled faintly. True, I'm not part of law enforcement. I can't access classified files, but that's easily fixed. You're behind on the news, Commissioner Caldwell. I smiled. I wasn't part of law enforcement before, but 1 second ago, I was appointed special investigator on this case. Call Secretary Hayes if you don't believe me. I didn't say minutes or hours ago. I said 1 second. Martin's face immediately soured. I see. I'll verify that later. Someone take Professor Whitmore and Mr. Hayes to the records room. Let them search. Mom knew the building well. Dad once worked here. She declined an escort and led us there herself. Only 2 older officers were inside. After greeting them, I asked, which shelf has the 2007 serial torture murder files? They exchanged awkward looks. We get countless files every year. We don't remember where that one is. Where are the files from 10 years ago? Shelf C12. But there are hundreds, maybe 1,000. How will you find it? I went straight to C12 and searched month by month. Finding the file wasn't hard. Finding useful details was. Mom and I searched from ladders for what felt like hours. Finally, Mom cried out, we found it. She rolled her eyes at the stacks of files. The case dragged on, but I never expected this many files. We only need the canvas reports. We already have most of the other records at home. Anything else would waste time. I reminded her but didn't take the files. Instead, I kept searching the shelves. Mom quietly reviewed interviews from the canvas, especially statements from those who assisted the investigation. Time passed. A strange smile crossed my face. Mom, was someone named Raymond Cole interviewed in that case? Mom quickly checked. Yes. How did you know? I raised the file and smiled confidently. Whether we solve the old torture murders depends on Raymond Cole. Neither Mom nor I knew Raymond's name well, but seeing it in the file slowly brought Mom's memories back. The case had rocked the city. As lead medical examiner, Mom was as invested as any officer. She vaguely remembered being there when Raymond was interviewed. As the memory cleared, Mom lowered the file. If I remember correctly, Raymond Cole was Grand Arcade's head of security. Correct. I handed her my file. Mom's eyes narrowed. This is the elevator accident file. I nodded. Yes. The records from the day Victor's son died. Guess what else I found? What? Tell me. Several statements are here, including Lauren Pierce's. Mom took it and quietly read the statement. Mr. Langford's son was playing on the escalator. I called out to him several times, but he ignored me. Then my supervisor called, so I turned back to my post. That's when it malfunctioned. His body was pulled in, and his head burst open. Why didn't you hit the emergency stop? I was terrified. Everyone was. No one even thought of it. Lauren's statement revealed what happened that day. Victor's son ignored every warning. Because of his father, no one knew how firmly to intervene. No one expected the escalator to fail and catch the boy's feet. If someone had hit the emergency stop, he might have lost his legs, but survived. I began piecing it together, but kept one theory to myself. Instead, I asked something else. Why isn't there any video evidence? Mom looked puzzled. Most of the torture murders happened outside camera coverage. Surveillance wasn't like it is now. We only had scattered footage of the victims alive. I mean, a fatal escalator accident happened in a major department store. Why wasn't any footage preserved? Mom stared in shock. That can't be right. The file says investigators reviewed the footage, but it was never archived. I returned the file and pulled Mom up. Let's find Raymond Cole. My instincts say he's the link between both cases. Find him and we'll identify the old killer. Mom said nothing more. We returned the files and left the records room. The 2 officers immediately reported to Martin. We didn't care what they told him. We had no time for political games. We left the bureau and went to the public records office. Finding one person in all of Crestfall otherwise would be nearly impossible. The supervisor cooperated. No one dared snub the Hayes family. But Raymond Cole was a common name. Neither the first nor last name narrowed much down. We wanted results immediately, so we even ignored Martha's calls to come eat. Finally, at 8 p.m., an employee rushed over with a file. Professor Whitmore, Mr. Hayes, we found Raymond Cole. We both stood. Where does he live? The employee looked uneasy. I frowned. What's wrong? It's not that I can't say. It's just that the Raymond Cole who served as Grand Arcade's head of security, he paused and lowered his voice. He died 10 years ago. Mom and I were equally stunned. A crucial figure in the serial torture murders from 10 years ago had died that very same year. I hadn't expected that, whether it was the old torture murders or the escalator tragedy involving Victor's son. Raymond felt like the link between them. He'd given statements in both cases. I wasted no time. I had the employee pull Raymond's records. They confirmed he was the man we wanted. But he died in a hit-and-run on October 4, 2007. The driver was caught months later, then died of cancer in prison soon after. After reading everything, I narrowed my eyes. This was a contract killing. With over 20 years as a medical examiner, Mom also knew his death wasn't simple. Grand Arcade clerk Lauren Pierce died on September 29th. Raymond died on October 4th, only 5 days later. And the driver who killed him happened to have cancer. That was impossible not to question. So the old torture murders didn't have only 9 victims. Mom spoke grimly. There were 10. I released the mouse. It's dark out. Let's pause and go home for dinner. Mom checked her watch and slapped her forehead. It's after 8. I'm used to missing meals, but you're too young to eat so irregularly. When it came to food, she took it seriously. She dragged me home. The Hayes residence was brightly lit. My father, Grant Hayes, was watching TV on the couch. 2 elderly people sat beside him. My grandparents, Walter Hayes and Evelyn Mercer. Grandpa looked stern and naturally commanding. Grandma looked elegant, with the knowing eyes of someone who'd seen it all. People in Crestfall once described the Hayes family this way. Aside from their teenage heir, every man and woman was a force in the military or law enforcement. Even my sweet-looking grandmother, Evelyn Mercer, was a renowned criminal investigator. Though retired, no one had forgotten how she'd personally gone north to capture the country's top crime boss, Arthur Blackwood. I walked in with a grin. Grandpa, Grandma, what brings you home? Grandma spoiled me most. The moment she saw me, she jumped up, delighted, and clasped my hands. Then she saw how late it was and glared. She turned to Dad. Did you eat? Dad looked baffled. Mom, didn't we just eat together? You had the nerve to eat? Grandma snapped. Your son spent all day running around for you, while you feasted at home. What kind of father does that? Dad looked miserable. You ate plenty too, he thought. He didn't dare say it. He could only apologize. Grandma huffed and called toward the kitchen. Martha, make 2 fresh dishes. My precious grandson and daughter-in-law can't go hungry. Chloe and I felt a little awkward. After dinner, Grandpa removed his glasses and asked, Ethan, I hear you spent all day helping your mother investigate. Yeah. We found quite a bit. Dad immediately perked up. What? You found a lead in the 10-year-old case? Before he finished, Grandma smacked the back of his head. You have the nerve to ask? Without your father and me back then, would you still be sitting comfortably in that position? Mom, you can't forget your son now that you have a grandson. I'm the one you gave birth to. My grandson's still better. I've looked at you for over 40 years. I'm sick of you. Grandma peeled an orange for me as she spoke. I ate it and said with a smile, the old case went unsolved. Largely because the investigators were careless. Exactly. Mom cut in. Bottom line, Grant Hayes, you were the biggest problem. Dad frowned. I was careful at every step. How could I have missed anything? You never investigated Grand Arcade, and the victims were connected. I explained calmly. Claire Sutton had a Grand Arcade store card. Lauren Pierce worked there. Soon after Lauren died, Security Chief Raymond Cole died in a suspicious crash. Before that, Victor Langford's son died in an escalator accident. Yet Grand Arcade, the key link, was completely ignored. That oversight let the killer walk free for 10 years. And our family took the blame for 10 years. Dad's expression changed completely. He said nothing, and stared hard at me. My grandparents did the same, except Grandma grabbed a pen and quickly mapped it out. Soon she wrote one name, Victor Langford. Barring any surprises, he's the prime suspect. Grandma set down her pen. I glanced at the page and gave her a thumbs up. Grandma, you haven't lost your touch. From just a few clues, you reached the same conclusion I did. But Grandma didn't smile. She looked deadly serious. Even if we suspect Victor, where's the evidence? After 10 years, it must have been destroyed. No. I smirked. Raymond Cole or Lauren Pierce should tell us where it is. Aren't they dead? Someone once said. I answered softly, the dead can speak too. Late that night, The lights in the Hayes residence went dark one by one. But my parents were still awake in their room. Chloe, haven't you noticed something different about Ethan? Dad set down his book and frowned. Mom immediately took offense. You have some nerve. If this weren't tied to the old case, do you think Ethan would willingly step into the spotlight? The public has linked Natalie's murder to the old case. If we still can't give them answers, what will happen to the Hayes family? I know the consequences, but Natalie's case is already solved. Mom scoffed. Grant Hayes, that high office has made you stupid. If you publicly name Megan Price, how many people will believe you? The old case left Crestfall's residence with a scar that never healed. The moment Natalie's death was reported, the city erupted. Everyone is saying, the old killer is back. The online backlash is already out of control. People have even exposed the investigators who led the old case, including your parents. The attacks are pouring in. Dad finally understood. You're right. No one would believe Megan did it. She left us a ticking time bomb. We have to defuse it. Mom softened her tone. Still, I'm surprised too. Ethan used to be timid and even a little spoiled. He didn't act like a military family's son at all. But after spending today with him, I realized we misjudged him. That's my son. In the end, she couldn't resist praising herself. Dad puffed out his chest with pride too. But they never imagined that, in the dead of night, someone opened a door and quietly left the Hayes residence. That someone was me. It was nearly midnight. I walked for a long time, before finally finding a cab. The driver looked exhausted. Out this late, kid? Won't your parents be mad? I smiled and shook my head. Late is better. Take me to Ridgeview Memorial Park outside the city. The driver's eyes widened nervously. Where? Ridgeview Memorial Park. I nodded. A 17-year-old wasn't going home or to a gaming cafe. He wanted to visit a cemetery after midnight. The driver rubbed his face hard. After confirming I was alive, he took a deep breath. A trip outside the city paid well, after all. He gathered his courage and drove. It was nearly 1 a.m. when we arrived. I got out. The driver asked out of concern, Kid, what are you doing here this late? Catching a criminal. I smiled. Wanna come watch? He quickly shook his head and sped off. I smiled and entered the cemetery. The cemetery felt eerie at night, but I didn't care. In my past life, I'd spent time in cemeteries, and even sat beside graves all night. Feeling the chill around me, I picked up my pace. Soon I stopped before a grave. A portrait was set into the headstone. It showed a man around 30. He had rugged but ordinary features. I looked at the headstone and said softly, Raymond Cole, do you think your former boss, Victor Langford, will visit you tonight? Then I moved off to the side. As a former criminal, I understood how certain criminals think, especially those who committed major crimes and were never caught. Deep down, they're arrogant and wild. In public, they may act completely harmless. But once they turn away, their eyes become a snake's. Sometimes, to lure in prey, they deliberately leave clues and toy with people. Victor hadn't made much of an impression on me. He seemed perfectly normal. But if he was the killer, he'd know Raymond's name would resurface. And once it did, he might come to Raymond's grave to brag about what he'd accomplished in 10 years. The odds were low, but Victor was lonely. Over the past decade, he'd divorced his wife, had no other children, and lived alone. Now the past had been dragged up again. In his shoes, even I might want someone to talk to, but a blood-stained killer can only share his secrets with the dead. The minutes ticked by. After some time, I caught a glimmer in the corner of my eye. A light flashed below the cemetery. It vanished quickly, but I'd seen it. Minutes later, a man in a suit appeared before Raymond's grave. He sat down and quietly lit a cigarette. Then he spoke with a mocking laugh. Raymond, someone's finally remembered my masterpiece from 10 years ago. Some amateur actually tried copying my murders. Couldn't even tie the ropes right, yet dared impersonate me. Isn't that hilarious? But those idiot cops haven't changed in 10 years. Think I should really make a comeback? I used to kill for my son's revenge. I never knew killing could be addictive. Do you know how badly I've craved it these 10 years? As he finished, I stepped from the shadows. I smiled. Victor Langford, how about I give you a chance to scratch that itch? When I emerged, Victor looked horrified. What are you doing here? He jumped up and shouted. I chuckled. Relax. You're a criminal mastermind who evaded the police for 10 full years. Getting rattled this easily doesn't suit you. His expression shifted. After a long silence, he spoke. You already suspected me when we met today, didn't you? No. Let me put it differently. The moment we found you, you knew your cover was about to fall apart. Victor burst out laughing. I know you're probably wearing a wire, but don't you know? A recording made without the other person's consent isn't admissible in court. I'm not as complicated as you think. I shook my head. I've never cared for recording devices. I only came to see what kind of man you really are. He frowned, clearly unconvinced. A recording might not be primary evidence, but it could support a case. Still, my expression made him test the waters with a sneer. So what kind of man do you think I am? Someone who's very good at crime. By the way, where did you learn those restraints? Only a few days passed between your son's death and Claire Sutton's murder. Not enough time to learn them. You already knew how, didn't you? A smug look crossed his face. Those restraints terrified countless people 10 years ago. Some even had the same nightmare, being tied that way and waking drenched in sweat. Victor clearly had no intention of telling me. He coldly said, "Guess," then turned and headed downhill. Watching him leave, I spoke calmly. "Wait, what? Still trying to get me talking?" He turned back with a sneer. "Ethan, I only came to visit a former employee. No law says I can't visit him after midnight. And I don't understand a word you're saying. So even if you think I'm the killer, until you have proof, I'm still Victor Langford, general manager of Summit Plaza." He burst out laughing again and kept walking without looking back. I sighed. "You think I came to arrest you tonight? That attitude deserves a beating." The moment I finished, I grabbed his hair. He was stunned. In his eyes, without my family background, I wasn't even worth speaking to. I was just a 17-year-old. So what if I was gifted? I was still an inexperienced kid. What he didn't expect was how strong this kid was. Once I grabbed him, he couldn't move. "Ethan, what are you doing? You're the heir to a powerful family. Are you really going to break the law? Let go." Victor knew the law inside out. Over the years, he'd studied it countless times, preparing for the day he might be caught, and looking for loopholes. Unfortunately, for all his legal knowledge, he'd overlooked one thing. I had no restraints and no fear. Even if I crippled you, who could touch me? I chuckled and planted my foot on his left leg. "Someone in Crestfall may be able to take me down, but it sure isn't you, Victor Langford." I barely seemed to press down, but then came a sharp crack. Victor screamed in agony. I crouched before him, narrowed my eyes, and smiled. "I already know, even if you won't tell me. Claire Sutton, Lauren Pierce, Sophie Dawson. The day your son died, they were all near the escalator. Watching him die, weren't they? Because they saw it but failed to act. You blamed them for your son's death. Your hatred made them targets. Then you killed them one by one, right?" The escalator accident file only contained Lauren's statement, because among the 9 victims, she alone worked at Grand Arcade. But by coincidence or something else, the people near or riding the escalator with your son included Claire and all 8 other victims. Victor seemed to forget his pain. His eyes widened in disbelief. His face seemed to ask how I knew something no one could know. "How did you know?" I released him and spoke as I headed downhill. "I'll give you one more day. Try to make this challenging. Otherwise, when time's up, the game's over." My final words were barely a whisper. Solving crimes may be more fun than committing them. Looks like I'll have plenty of fun from now on. Victor stared blankly after me, probably wondering whether, to Ethan Hayes, matching wits with criminal masterminds was really just a game. Over an hour later, I returned to the Hayes residence. The whole house was still asleep. No one knew I'd been gone for 2 hours. I returned to my room and quietly fell asleep. When I opened my eyes again, it was broad daylight. Mom was outside calling me to breakfast. After breakfast, Grandpa returned to military headquarters. Grandma headed to her office. Mom and Dad rushed out too. I watered the plants, then left. I'd given Victor Langford 24 hours. Before time ran out, I'd find the key evidence and send him from the hospital to prison. No matter what happened to him, 9 people didn't deserve to die for it. He had no right, and I wouldn't let one man tarnish the Hayes family name. The trip from home to Raymond Cole's address took nearly half an hour. I reached the door and knocked. A woman in her 60s, stooped with age, answered. "Young man, who are you looking for?" "Ma'am, I'm with the police bureau." I pulled out my credentials. I told Martin Caldwell I could become a special investigator anytime. To avoid trouble, I'd actually had Dad make it official. "Here are my credentials. I need to ask you a few questions." She read them, then glanced at me. "I'm the only one left here. What could the police want with me?" I was surprised. This tiny apartment was home to her alone. Inside, I accepted the tea she offered with both hands. It was cloudy, but I didn't mind. I took a sip. "Ma'am, where's the rest of your family?" Her face turned bitter. "My son died in an accident 10 years ago. My husband couldn't bear it. He died a month later. We were such a happy family of 3. Now I'm the only one left. I've been alone for 10 years. My eyes narrowed. I hadn't expected Raymond's family to have suffered this much. Victor had silenced Raymond for knowing his secret. Then Raymond's father died from the grief of losing his only son. Directly or indirectly, Victor had taken 11 lives. The thought shook me, but I showed nothing. "I see. Ma'am, I'm sorry, but I'm here about your son, Raymond Cole. After 10 years, a case has resurfaced. The clues suggest Your son may have been our most important witness. That's why I'm here. My son's been dead for 10 years. I don't know what he was involved in. Wouldn't asking me be pointless? She sighed. Ma'am, just tell me this. Before your son's accident, did he mention anything important he needed to protect? And he was 30 when he died, right? Was he especially close to anyone? Her eyes reddened. Yes. He was dating a clerk at Grand Arcade. Why was my son cursed with such a cruel fate? The woman he loved was brutally murdered. Then he died soon after. God, why did you do this to my family? That one question broke her. I'd never imagined. Raymond Cole and Lauren Pierce were lovers. I quickly patted her back. Ma'am, I'm here. About Lauren Pierce's murder. After Lauren was killed, did your son act strangely? She frowned, searching her memory. Finally, something came back to her. Yes, he acted very strangely that night. I heard him come home after midnight. He locked himself in his room and sobbed. My husband and I asked why, but he wouldn't tell us. My heart jolted. Raymond really was the key. Then think carefully, ma'am. Was there anything he guarded closely around then? Anything he seemed unusually concerned about? Maybe a fanny pack. He carried it almost every day, but left it home the day he died. I buried it with him. My heart sank. Her words all but confirmed. The key evidence was inside that pack. But it was buried with him. To retrieve it, we'd have to exhume Raymond's casket. Would a woman of her generation ever allow that? Seeing her grief gave me a headache. But without opening the casket, we'd never get the evidence. After thinking, I asked cautiously, Ma'am, do you really believe your son's death was an accident? She paused. Of course. Didn't the driver confess in court? But did you know he had cancer? He died soon after going to prison. She nodded. I know. His family told me later. That accident nearly destroyed their family too. I hated them at first, but what good did it do? Her words revealed something else. She knew how to make peace with her pain. Otherwise, she couldn't have forgiven the man who killed her son. Ma'am, what if I told you your son was deliberately murdered? Her eyes widened. She couldn't speak. I helped her sit and spoke slowly. Ma'am, I can't be completely certain, but Raymond's death is directly tied to the serial torture murders that rocked Crestfall 10 years ago. And whatever is inside that buried pack is crucial. Why, you mean you want to retrieve it? Her voice trembled. I nodded firmly. Raymond has been dead for 10 years. But if he was murdered, don't you want to find his killer? And let him rest in peace? Tears streamed down her face as she repeated. How can we? He's been resting for years. Must we disturb him? Ma'am, you even forgave the driver who killed your son. Why not let your son know the truth? She fell silent and lowered her head. I said nothing more and let her decide. The seconds passed. Finally, she looked up. Is this really necessary? We checked that pack. There was nothing inside. Maybe you didn't inspect it closely. If it's truly empty, I promise. I'll move your son to a better burial site. But we must exhume him today. Any delay could cause trouble. She stopped hesitating and nodded. All right, we'll do it your way. I immediately took out my phone. Send a professional crew to Ridgeview Memorial Park. Exhume a grave and bring a ritual priest. Yes, Mr. Hayes. When can they arrive? The casket must be opened before evening. It'll be done by 4. After hanging up, I turned to Helen Cole. Ma'am, let's go to Ridgeview Memorial Park. Young man, are you sure Raymond won't blame me? I gently patted her shoulder. If he was murdered, he'd blame you more for doing nothing. She said nothing more. We went to the cemetery together. Before long, the priest and workers arrived. I gave the signal. The exhumation began. I knew Raymond might not have been entirely innocent. Lauren was his girlfriend. If he had evidence against Victor, he should have gone straight to the police. He didn't. Days later, Victor eliminated him. There was only one explanation. Raymond and Victor shared a dark secret. I'd never say that in front of his mother. Otherwise, she'd never allow the exhumation. After the rites, the workers opened the grave. Soon, they brought the casket up. It had been buried vertically to save space. There was no intact body inside. Cremation was already standard, so it held only ashes and personal effects, including the pack I wanted. The casket was set down. I looked at the crying woman. Ma'am, may we open it? Open it. If he was wronged, he'll thank you. She wiped her tears. I nodded to the workers. The lid creaked open. I immediately spotted the buried pack. I grabbed it and tugged open the stiff zipper. But it was completely empty. It looked as if nothing had ever been inside. 10 years underground had damaged the fabric, but couldn't make its contents disappear. I stayed calm and carefully felt the lining. No one understood what I was doing. Even Helen knew the pack was empty. She'd only agreed because I insisted it held key evidence. Besides, she had another motive. She wanted a better grave for her son. Young man, can that pack really be evidence? She sounded guilty. I'd known all along that she'd seen inside. I didn't blame her. I pinched one corner. Found it. Ma'am, barring any surprises. The truth about your son's death will be public tonight. Then I turned to the workers. Store Mr. Cole's ashes at the funeral home for now. We'll move him to a new grave in 2 days. Helen gripped my hand emotionally. Young man, you knew I lied. Why still help me? Because every parent deserves compassion. I smiled. Ma'am, the Hayes family keeps its word. We don't break promises. Besides, wasn't the pack empty? With that, I left. I headed straight to Chloe's office. She was reviewing Claire Sutton's and the other victims' autopsy reports, hoping the old records held a new clue. She started to scowl when the door opened, then saw me and looked surprised. Ethan, why are you here? Mom, call Dad. We can issue a warrant for Victor Langford. Arrest Victor? You found evidence? She gasped. Look, I pulled out the pack. I'd already opened the stitching and removed a folded photo. It was tightly folded, blurry, and nearly black. But a strip of light revealed one man's face. Lauren wasn't killed at Eastgate Bridge. She died at Eastgate Park, which was later demolished. Using a decorative light beside a flower bed, Raymond photographed Victor with Lauren. Mom was horrified. The original investigation into Lauren's murder had placed the crime scene at Eastgate Bridge. No one knew it was really Eastgate Park. And while a vicious killer murdered her that night, another man hid in the darkness and used the faintest light to capture the killer's face. Mom stared at the yellowed photo. Unbelievable. Justice really does catch up with everyone. But why didn't Raymond give us this photo? Mom, you may not know this. Raymond and Lauren were dating. Mom's eyes widened. Impossible. If they were dating, why didn't he save her? Only Victor can answer that. Call Dad now. We can hold a press conference before dark and announce the old serial torture murders are solved. Mom immediately called Dad. He became ecstatic. I could hear him from where I stood. Really? The 10-year-old case is solved? Our son solved it. Of course it is. If we relied on you, it might take another 10 years. Send officers to Summit Plaza and arrest him. Mom snapped. Dad laughed, then suddenly caught himself. Wait, I had officers watching Summit Plaza this morning. Victor hasn't shown up all day. No way. Did he run? Mom's expression changed. I took the phone with a smile. He can't run. I found time to break his leg last night. He's probably in a hospital. Check. I'll arrest him myself. What? You broke his leg last night? Weren't you asleep? Dad cried out. I rolled my eyes. We'd already tipped him off. How could you sleep? No wonder Grandma says you lucked into your job. You little punk. I'll send officers now and deal with you later. He hung up, annoyed. Barely 15 minutes later, he called back. Victor was in an orthopedic hospital. A 10-year-old photo had become our key evidence. But I didn't trust anyone else to break Victor. Too much time had passed, and one photo wasn't conclusive. No matter. I was already headed to the hospital. Victor was trapped. He wasn't going anywhere. As expected, he lay in a hospital bed, with his left leg in a cast and a dark look on his face. He didn't believe I could find evidence against him. But remembering my young face filled him with rage. Ethan Hayes, you think breaking my leg can keep me here and buy you time to investigate? Dream on. I've been safe for 10 years. You may be strong for a kid, but you're nowhere near as smart as me. The thought brought a vicious grin to his face. In a city as vast as Crestfall, he was nobody. Yet this nobody had once terrorized the entire city. He was confident and defiant. He checked the time. 3 o'clock. Just over 2 hours remained until our evening deadline. Would Ethan really bring the police? He sneered again. Before his smile faded, the door flew open. 7 or 8 officers stormed in, guns aimed at him. Victor froze, staring blankly as he tried to speak. But when he saw me step out from behind them, panic seized him. Ethan, why did you bring all these cops? He shouted. I glanced at him and told the officers. Close the door. Once it shut, I continued. Suspect Victor Langford attempted to escape. I had no choice but to break his other leg. Then I walked up to him. His face went white. My fist came down, and he screamed. Victor Langford, you're suspected of murdering Claire Sutton in 2007, along with Sophie Dawson, Lauren Pierce, Raymond Cole, and 6 others. Here's the warrant. Read it carefully. I held up the warrant as he trembled in pain. He stared at it. Impossible. You have no evidence. You can't arrest me. He roared. I wouldn't be here without evidence. Remember Raymond's photograph? I asked with a smile. Horror filled his face. His lips trembled for 3 full seconds, but no words came. Looks like you remember. Digging it out of his casket was worth it. I revealed the photo. Think carefully, Victor. Do you happen to have an identical twin? He reached for it but had no chance. Even now, you still think you're smarter than everyone. You think you can outplay every investigator. Victor, you got careless. When you paid a dying cancer patient to run Raymond down 10 years ago, you shouldn't have stopped there. You failed to destroy the key evidence. That makes you a failed criminal. My voice was cold. Deflated, he slumped against the bed. You really dug it from his grave? He'd been buried for 10 years. And you still managed to find it. The safest place for something important is underground. I stared at him. Start talking. Why didn't Raymond stop you from killing Lauren that night? Why did he just take a picture? That's what puzzles me most. Raymond and Lauren were dating. No man who sees someone killing his girlfriend would calmly stop to take a picture. Victor said nothing and closed his eyes. I knew what he was thinking. I smiled. You're looking for a way out, or a lighter sentence. Forget it. With me here, you're not getting away. He slowly opened his eyes and asked an odd, unrelated question. Ethan, are you really only 17? I paused, touched my face and smiled. What do you think? The way you think, your intelligence. You can't possibly be some ordinary kid, he growled. I smiled. That doesn't matter. What matters is your answer. I scratched your itch. Now scratch mine. He sighed and spoke through the pain. I don't know why Raymond did that either. I only know he later demanded $500,000 to stay quiet. Men like that can't be bought. So I had him killed. But I think he and Lauren had a serious falling out. A manager at the store was pursuing her too. She was on the phone with him when I attacked. Maybe Raymond hated her too. Besides, Raymond's family was poor. He ran security, but the pay was lousy. He may have seen this as his chance to get rich. Or maybe he arrived after I'd killed Lauren. The only photo shows me sitting beside her body. That finally made some sense. Only Raymond knew his true reason. Love can blind people. Enough about him. Did you really target those 9 women just because your son died on that escalator? A vicious gleam flashed in Victor's eyes. His voice dropped. You know what? Claire was right beside my son. She reacted fast and got clear. Why was she too stupid to pull my son up with her? She had plenty of time. And Sophie Dawson, that damn woman was right beside the emergency stop. Why didn't she press it? My son might have lost his feet. But their stupidity and panic got him killed. He looked like a rabid beast. I shook my head. I understand what happened to you after that. You truly hated Claire when you killed her. Then you discovered you enjoyed killing. It became addictive like cigarettes or drugs, right? How do you know? He stared in horror. I exhaled softly and turned away without another word. The officers cuffed him, but he kept shouting, Ethan, who the hell are you? I'm Ethan Hayes. I didn't look back. Victor, I just know how men like you think. Eventually, revenge for your son stopped mattering. You knew those women were innocent. They may have made mistakes, but they didn't deserve death. You just couldn't stop. And when the police couldn't find you, you grew bolder. You craved the fear on their faces as they died. You loved touching their cold bodies even more, right? By the time I finished, I was out the door. Victor stared blankly after me, speechless. I was right. By the time he killed Sophie, the hatred was gone. He'd never expected killing to become addictive. Victor was taken away in cuffs with both legs broken. Outside the room, I called Dad. Did you talk to the driver's family? Yes. They'll testify at trial. Dad sounded warm. He was clearly thrilled. By the way, come to the press conference tonight. I shrugged. Not interested. The case is solved. I'm done with law enforcement. I'm still a student. Right. You're still a student. You made me look good. I'll get you a big gift. How's that? Sounds good. Depends on the gift. We talked a little longer, then hung up. With nothing else to do, I went home. The moment Martha saw me, she wanted to cook. I said I wasn't hungry and turned on the TV. By evening, nearly every channel on Crestfall television network was airing the same report. Breaking news. The serial torture murders that rocked Crestfall 10 years ago have been solved. The killer was arrested at an orthopedic hospital at 3:42 p.m. Police sources confirm. The torture murder 2 days ago was committed by a different killer. Both cases are now solved. We've also learned that beyond the efforts of law enforcement, a young man identified only as Hayes made the greatest contribution to both cases. I watched the report. I wasn't surprised they'd revealed that much. I'd been involved throughout. Total secrecy was impossible. Then Mom unexpectedly called. Mom, what's up? Raymond's mother is here. She wants to speak with you. Helen's voice soon came through. Mr. Hayes, thank you for your kindness. But my son doesn't deserve such special treatment. I truly appreciate it, and I owe you an apology. I shouldn't have lied to you. I smiled. There's really no need. Bury him where he was. He brought it on himself. All right, we'll do as you wish. I don't do favors for no reason. Too many people need help. Why waste it on someone who may not deserve it? I only offered because I'd promised her. Since she declined, I gladly accepted. I put down my phone and kept watching TV. My parents didn't get home until almost 10. As soon as they arrived, Mom called me out. Ethan, your dad has a gift for you. I hadn't expected Dad to mean it, so I looked genuinely surprised. Dad, you were serious this afternoon? Dad laughed and patted my shoulder. What did you think? You should have seen Martin Caldwell in my office. He looked sick to his stomach. It was priceless. This time you did more for the Hayes family and law enforcement than anyone else. You've earned a gift. Then bring it out. Enough suspense. But neither of them moved. There was no gift box either. Mom smiled. Your dad arranged for you to graduate high school early and attend Crestfall Police Academy next semester. I froze. At first, I was thrilled to skip senior year. Turns out I was just trading one pressure cooker for another. Seeing my reluctance, Dad explained, Crestfall Police Academy is the country's top law enforcement school. Every student there has the potential to become an outstanding officer. Your grandpa was its honorary president when it opened. I graduated from there too. Ethan, the people there are fascinating. Don't you want to try it? Fascinating? Yes. Its best graduates usually rise to high office. But people also say the academy's top students could be criminal masterminds. If they turned criminal, they'd run the police in circles. Now that sounded interesting. In this life, I had money and power. I pushed others around. No one dared push me. Eating, playing, and sleeping every day was painfully dull. That's why, when the torture murder threatened the Hayes family, I jumped in immediately. If my classmates were really that interesting, life could be much more fun. At least it'd beat staring at textbooks every day. All right, I'll give the academy a shot. Mom was overjoyed. Great, I'll start packing everything you need. I stared at her in disbelief. Mom, school is over a month away. What's the rush? News that the decade-old serial torture murders were solved kept spreading throughout Crestfall. The mysterious young Hayes became an urban legend. Some called him a born detective. Others claimed he attended an elite international academy. Some even claimed Ethan's real last name was Holmes. They said he was Sherlock Holmes reincarnated. I read the comments and grinned. But people were busy. The case soon faded from daily conversation. 2 weeks later, Victor and Megan went to court and made headlines again. The city erupted once more. But I'd already moved on. I kept searching for information on Crestfall Police Academy. Unfortunately, almost nothing about it was online. The academy was clearly kept under wraps. If Dad hadn't mentioned it, I'd never have known it existed. Every summer, Crestfall Police Academy sends invitations to carefully selected students. Some come from prominent families, while others come from ordinary homes. But all share one trait: the potential to become outstanding officers and leaders. Just before school began, my invitation arrived. Dad had insisted that until the last possible moment, we wouldn't use the Hayes family's influence. When the invitation arrived, Dad couldn't stop smiling. Those old men at the academy haven't lost their minds after all. Our Ethan solved 2 major cases. They'd be crazy not to invite him. After weeks of family excitement, the new semester finally began. Mom packed bag after bag for me, clothes, supplies, and plenty of spares. The pile made my head hurt. Mom, the academy is here in Crestfall. It's only 30 minutes away. What's all this? I'm not leaving town. Mom ignored me and pointed to one bag. This one's clothes. That one's shoes. And don't forget this one. It has every medicine you might need. Also, take this card. I'll check the balance and refill it when needed. I took the card with a wry smile. It's not much. Only 100 grand. My mouth twitched. I was just a 17-year-old student. Yet I had a 6-figure allowance with no limit. And she'd refill it whenever I ran out. Sure, our family businesses brought in endless money, but 100 grand in spending money was absurd. I sighed at how thoroughly she spoiled me, and quietly pocketed the card. Got it. I'll call before I run low. Mom suddenly grew emotional and hugged me tight. Ethan, take good care of yourself at the academy. Eat and sleep on time, okay? I picked up my suitcase. Got it. I'll come home a few pounds heavier. I smiled and left home, taking a cab to Crestfall Police Academy. Every year, Crestfall Police Academy sends highly trained graduates across the country. For students dreaming of a career in law enforcement, it was sacred ground, the ultimate destination. As summer break ended, the campus came alive. Youthful energy and ambition filled the air. Nothing corrupt should have existed in a place like this. On the 7th floor roof of Dorm B, no one had visited in 2 months. Wind howled across the roof, rattling sheet metal and making loose parts clang. But an iron door completely sealed the roof from the building. No one knew what was up there, only that it had a water tank. With school starting, the tank would soon be used again to supply water for showers and laundry. But after 2 months of disuse and a loose valve, the tank was bone dry. Only a few small creatures remained, constantly bumping against its metal walls. The thuds were faint, but with an ear against the tank, you could hear creatures squeaking inside. Most likely, that tank held several rats. I stood outside Crestfall Police Academy. Officers guarded the gatehouse, standing straight with sharp eyes. That alone set it apart from ordinary schools. The academy had one unusual feature. Its students varied widely in age. Some were 25 or 26. Others were only 14 or 15. Older students seemed less impressive here, while younger ones stood out as prodigies. Still, it offered a full academic curriculum. Most courses prepared students for law enforcement, but language, math, English, physics, and chemistry were all required. I approached the gate. A guard immediately stopped me. "Student, please show your admission letter." I pulled it from my bag. Even on move-in day, parents weren't allowed inside. Anyone who needed parental help would be mocked. After checking the letter, the guard let me through. I smiled and thanked him. I entered and found the admissions office. They registered me and assigned my dorm. Once all the paperwork was done, I finally got my room key. The housing was nice, 3 students per room, each with a separate bed. My roommates hadn't arrived yet. I unpacked my things and played on my phone for a while. Soon the door opened. A man in his early 20s walked in. He had a buzz cut and was shorter than me, but solidly built. He paused when he saw me. "Hey, are you in this room too?" I nodded. He looked even more surprised. "So the rumors are true. Age really doesn't matter here. Man, you look 17 or 18 at most." I just turned 17. Close enough to 18. "Damn, you're a genius. That's awesome. I'm Trevor Walker. I'm from Riverbend. Nice to meet you." I smiled, shook his hand, and exchanged pleasantries. Then our last roommate arrived. Trevor looked stunned again, because another teenager walked in. He wore glasses and slightly worn clothes. He gave Trevor and me a faint smile, but his eyes were timid. "Hi, I am Owen Blake. I'm Ethan Hayes. I'm Trevor Walker. How old are you, man?" Trevor seemed obsessed with age. 19. "Come on. You're killing me. 3 guys in one room. One's 17, one's 19, and I'm already 21. How can an old man like me room with 2 prodigies?" Trevor pounded his chest in despair. Owen and I couldn't help laughing, but Owen kept sneaking glances at me. Finally, he had to ask, "Are you really only 17? I nodded. He grinned. "Looks like I came to the right place. This is gonna be fun." I gave him a surprised look. He had the same idea as me. He was here for fun. After chatting a while, we went to check out the cafeteria. It would feed us all semester, so it mattered. Luckily, the academy cafeteria wasn't bad. The food was good. Owen and Trevor couldn't stop grinning. They praised the academy all over again. But when we returned to the dorm, this perfect image took a hit. There was no water. Owen took off his shirt. Even with the AC, he still felt sticky. After waiting a while, he said, "This won't work. Let's ask the dorm manager. When the water's coming back." Trevor and I agreed. No shower in this heat was miserable. We went downstairs together and found a crowd already asking. Over the noisy crowd, the dorm manager picked up a megaphone. "Everyone, please be patient. I only arrived this evening. I've already reported it. The rooftop water tank probably broke after sitting unused. But it's too late tonight. The school says a repair crew will come tomorrow. We have to wait until tomorrow? We'll stink like rotten fish by morning." "Exactly. We need water. We need showers. Our roommate Gordon Mills has stinky feet. Without water, he'll gas us all to death tonight." The students kept yelling, overwhelming the manager. Owen sighed. I said, "Forget it. Let's go back. We'll have to rough it tonight." Owen replied. Then Trevor had a wild idea. "It's just a water tank. Why don't we fix it ourselves? The campus store sells tools. Come on, guys. Let's buy some and fix the tank. We'll bring water back for the whole dorm." Trevor jumped into action. I was sweaty and uncomfortable too. If we could fix it ourselves, why wait? We bought some tools and, while no one was watching, raced upstairs. An iron door blocked the roof. A large padlock hung from it. Trevor raised his wrench and asked, shirtless, "Should I pop it? We're already here. Do it. Otherwise, the school will make us wait until tomorrow." Trevor jammed in the wrench. The lock snapped open. He pushed open the cobweb-covered door. A refreshing breeze hit us. Then I caught a scent and stopped Trevor and Owen. "Something smells wrong." It smelled like decay. It was faint, but unmistakable. Owen soon looked at me. "Yeah. Something up here is rotting. Probably a dead rat or bird." I nodded and smiled. "Let's fix the tank. It's roasting up here. I'm already burning up. Let's hurry. If we're caught, we'll get chewed out even for helping." Trevor headed toward the tank. The rooftop tank was huge with water pooled beneath it. Trevor looked it over and sighed. I expected worse. The valve just came loose. The pump pressure knocked it off. With this opening exposed, there's no pressure. No water can reach the pipes. Put it back on. Then we'll have water. Owen urged him. Trevor nodded and picked the valve out of the puddle. But beside it, he found a ring. "Is this real gold?" Hearing that, Owen and I walked over. Trevor was holding a ring. It looked gold and wasn't large. The letter R was engraved on it. "Someone probably dropped it up here. Let's turn it in later." Owen spoke softly. Trevor seemed reluctant. but didn't plan to keep it. He put it in his pocket and raised the valve. Then a pointed head suddenly squeezed through the opening, squeaking nonstop. Trevor recoiled in disgust. Damn, how'd rats get in there? That's disgusting. The tank supplied water to the entire dorm. Just knowing rats were inside made us sick. But Owen and I moved closer. From the fist-sized opening, we smelled that same rotten odor. A rat couldn't smell that strong. Owen looked baffled. Then something hit me. I climbed the ladder and opened the tank. I shined my phone inside. A person lay at the bottom. The stench poured out. Trevor and Owen saw my expression change. They asked together, "What is it? Come see for yourselves." I climbed down. Owen climbed up first and shined in his phone. When he saw the motionless body, surprise flashed across his face. Then he instinctively rubbed his chin, deep in thought. Trevor called impatiently, "Why are you staring? Get down and let me see." Owen quietly climbed down and Trevor went up. One look inside made him yell, "Holy crap, a dead body. There's a body in the academy's water tank." Trevor looked like Columbus discovering the new world. Dad had said the academy was full of oddballs. Trevor was definitely one of them. Most people would panic at a corpse. Not him. After the initial shock, he tried climbing inside. I rolled my eyes. "What are you doing? Get down." "Getting the body out so we can examine it." "Owen, get ready. Didn't you come here to study forensics? Once I get it out, it's your time to shine." Excitement lit Owen's eyes. He rubbed his hands. "I won't let you guys down." Part of me wanted Trevor to retrieve it too, so I could examine it. This was Crestfall Police Academy. The body was hard to see, but it wore an academy uniform. It had been there a long time. Someone had killed an academy student on campus and hidden the body in the tank for weeks. The killer had to be brilliant. Could the victim have fallen in? No one would believe that. The lid had been sealed. This was clearly murder and concealment. Trevor braced himself to jump into the tank. Just as he lifted himself, the iron door opened. Several unexpected people stepped onto the roof. They spotted Trevor climbing into the tank and shouted angrily, "What are you three doing? Get down now." A man who looked like an administrator hurried over, furious. "Why are you on the roof after dark instead of in your dorm?" Trevor explained, "The dorm has no water. The manager said repairs had to wait until tomorrow. But it's only a loose valve. We can fix that ourselves." The man's expression softened. "If the school says it'll be fixed tomorrow, you students should follow instructions. But you meant well, so I'll let it go. The repair crew is here. Go back." None of us moved. He snapped. "What do my orders mean? Nothing. I'm Howard Briggs, Director of Campus Facilities. I order you back to your dorm now." I spoke up. "Director Briggs, there's a body in the tank." Howard froze. "Body or not, you must obey." "What? There's a body in the tank?" "Yes. As the first witnesses to find it, we can't leave now. Director Briggs, the priority is to remove the body, identify the victim, and process the scene. Then we find the killer." I finished calmly. Trevor and Owen fought back laughter. Howard's expression changed. He turned to the repairman. "Gentlemen, please wait." He climbed the ladder and looked inside. Then he called, "Send the Academy Security Office immediately. We found a body in the water tank atop Dorm B." He made another call. "President Monroe? This is Howard Briggs. A man's body was found on the roof of Dorm B. He's wearing an academy uniform. This is extremely serious. Please come at once and handle the emergency." He acted fast, calling security first, then the president. He clearly wasn't an ordinary administrator. But I cared more about the body. Trevor and Owen watched it closely too. Trevor whispered, "Ethan, what kind of person could kill someone here without raising any alarm?" Owen adjusted his glasses. "Given the decomposition and the timing of summer break, could the victim have died last semester?" I smiled. "How would I know? But we can ask to join the investigation. We're witnesses after all. Besides, we found him on our first day. Know what that means?" They looked at me. I lowered my voice. "The victim trusted no one, except us three." Trevor and Owen rolled their eyes. "As future officers, we should be rational. The dead are gone. Our job is to find the facts. The victim didn't choose us. No, fate arranged this." I left it at that. Security arrived quickly and removed the body from the tank. It was badly decomposed, with organs exposed. The face had been gnawed beyond recognition. Trevor went pale and muttered, "After dying like this, think he'll come back as a ghost?" Owen swallowed, but his eyes gleamed behind his glasses. "Guys, what do I do? I can't resist examining that body. Just look at it. To a forensic student, it's a gold mine." I said nothing and walked to the body. Howard started to stop me, then held back. He seemed curious what we'd find. Owen examined the body while Trevor searched the area. I watched quietly. Owen soon looked up. The victim died from blunt force trauma that shattered his skull. This isn't the primary crime scene. The body was moved here after death. I can't determine time of death yet. The weather alternated between rain and sun. Rain would have submerged the body, then the sun would have dried the tank. Trevor returned and held up the ring. I found no sign the murder happened on the roof. But either the victim or killer likely has an R in their name. I shook my head. No, the time frame is easy to determine. He died in the final days of last semester. The killer was likely one of last semester's graduates, and an exceptional one. Owen frowned. How can you be sure? The academy closes completely during break. Aside from certain staff, students aren't allowed inside. And this body has been decomposing for weeks. He couldn't have died in the last 2 days. That leaves the final days of last semester. Owen suddenly understood. Right? How did I miss that? Surprise crossed Howard's face as he looked at me. What's your name? I kept my eyes on the body. Ethan Hayes. His eyes narrowed as if he remembered something. I ignored him and lifted the victim's shirt. Then I pulled down his pants. Everyone froze. Trevor blurted out, "Where's his junk? Did the rats eat it?" I gave him a look and stood. This was almost certainly revenge. The killer removed his genitals after death, likely over a romantic dispute. A voice came from behind me. That's a Hayes for you. In 3 or 4 years, our academy may produce another star investigator. The speaker was Academy President Henry Monroe. The moment he appeared, Howard rushed over and greeted him respectfully. "President Monroe, you're here." Henry waved him off and glanced at the body. He sighed. "You 3 said this was revenge, that the name contains an R, and that he's likely a recent graduate." "Howard, which recent graduates have an R in their names?" "President Monroe, I've seen this ring before. Ryan Parker wore one exactly like it." Howard answered stiffly. When Henry heard that, his expression changed. "What? You think that's Ryan Parker?" I looked over. Even the president was horrified. Ryan must have been someone important. "No way. Ryan Parker? You mean the graduate, who ranked in the top 3 across the board?" Trevor cried out in disbelief. Henry didn't answer. He shouted, "Hurry! Notify the Metropolitan Police Bureau. The academy will form a special team to assist the police. Get a DNA test done immediately and confirm whether it's Ryan. Then call his parents at once. He's been dead nearly 2 months. If this is Ryan, his parents should have called us long ago." I was wondering the same thing. How could his family stay silent for 2 months? Howard called the police, then dialed Ryan's family. He put it on speaker and forced a friendly tone. "Hello, is this Ryan Parker's father, Mr. Parker? This is Howard Briggs, Facilities Director at Crestfall Police Academy." "Director Briggs, what can I do for you? May I ask if Ryan is home right now? The academy needs to speak with him." Howard looked at Henry as he spoke. Ryan's father answered calmly. "No, he's not. After graduating, he suddenly went to teach in the mountains. He didn't even discuss it with us. But he said we'd see him in the next couple of days." Everyone looked surprised. Howard asked, "Has he called or video chatted with you?" "He's in a remote area. There's no internet and cell service is awful. Video calls are impossible. He only called last month after going into town." Ryan's father suddenly caught on. "Director Briggs, did something happen to Ryan?" Howard looked at Henry. Henry took a breath and accepted the phone. "Mr. Parker, this is Henry Monroe, President of Crestfall Police Academy. I need you to confirm something. Was the man who called last month really Ryan?" "Yes, but he was hoarse and badly congested from a cold." I looked at the body. It was Ryan. The caller had to be the killer. He promised they'd meet during move-in. He knew the body couldn't stay hidden. Henry cleared his throat. "Nothing happened. But since you can't reach Ryan, please come to the academy with your wife. We have something very important to give you. But we live in Bayport. Getting there, Mr. Parker, you and your wife must come. This is extremely important to Ryan." Henry told a well-meaning lie. Ryan's father agreed, then hung up. Henry returned the phone and stood silent. Trevor and Owen couldn't wait any longer. "President Monroe, we're incoming freshmen. Why not let the academy's support team be the 3 of us? Don't worry, we'll catch the killer." Henry looked at Trevor and Owen, then turned to me. "Ethan, will you join? So, you can choose anyone for the team." He clearly knew about the cases I'd solved. And this killer fascinated me. Who could quietly eliminate one of last year's top students and impersonate him for 2 months? Even I'd never tried that. "Fine. The team will be us 3. But I don't want much police interference. Too much red tape will slow us down. The academy can handle the formalities, but I want full control. The academy has all the equipment we need, right?" Howard tried to object, but Henry stopped him with a smile. "Fine. You're in charge. I'll work things out with the police. But Ethan, you know this case can't drag on." "Of course." "Good. Security, take the body to the Forensic Science Department's lab. Have them run the DNA." At Henry's order, Security wrapped the body and carried it away. The three of us gathered around the body in the forensics lab. Until the DNA results came back, nothing was certain. The ring wasn't conclusive either. Owen examined the body carefully. I watched from the side. Trevor kept staring at the victim's groin and muttered, "Ethan, what if this guy was two-timing? Maybe one woman felt betrayed, killed him, then cut off his junk." He looked convinced. When Owen and I ignored him, Trevor complained, "Why are you two ignoring me? Do you know how ruthless women can be? Forget cutting off a man's junk. With enough hate, they'd cut him to pieces. Until we know the truth, every theory is just speculation." Owen replied. Trevor pouted, then leaned toward me. "Hey Ethan, is your family loaded? President Monroe called you Mr. Hayes." I looked at him. "Are you here to investigate? Or gossip and watch the show?" "To investigate, obviously. I've already figured this case out. The hard part isn't identifying the killer. It's finding evidence that proves it. We're facing a highly intelligent criminal. He quietly eliminated Ryan Parker, one of the Academy's best students. We'll be lucky if he left even one piece of evidence." Trevor seemed goofy, but getting into this academy took real skill. His assessment matched mine. Finding the killer wasn't the hardest part. Proving it was. We worked from evening until late at night. Owen finally got the results. "It's Ryan Parker. Ethan, you were right. He died about 60 days ago. A blunt weapon shattered his skull. Then his genitals were removed, and his body was hidden in the tank." Owen said, removing his glasses. I took off my lab coat. "I'm wondering whether the missing organ might become our most important evidence." Owen and Trevor froze. They gave awkward smiles. "No way. It's been 2 months. Did the killer pickle it?" "It's only a theory." I smiled. We said nothing more, and opened the lab door. A crowd was unexpectedly waiting outside. They were older Academy students. A tall student stepped forward. "You're the investigation team President Monroe appointed? The incoming freshman?" Trevor stepped forward with his head held high. "That's us. I'm Logan Caldwell, a second-year student here. My team is joining yours. Give us everything you know so we can solve this quickly." His tone was calm but clearly commanding. Trevor's expression darkened. Owen clutched the case folder. When we said nothing, Logan continued, "Listen, freshman. This is the Academy's first murder case. The public knows, and it's causing an uproar. For the Academy's reputation, you should know your limits. Don't fail to solve it and embarrass the Academy. That's ridiculous. Who says we can't solve it?" Trevor shot back. "If I say you can't, you can't. Out of respect for President Monroe, I'm offering to join your team. Otherwise, I'd have your team disbanded." Logan's eyes were cold and arrogant. Several students behind him chimed in. "Listen, freshman. When we solve this, we'll still give you some credit. But you just got here. You probably don't even know basic investigative procedure. So accept the offer. You might learn something from us." Trevor clenched his fists. "Bullshit. Only professors get to teach me. Who the hell are you to lecture us?" Logan's gaze turned cold. "I'm letting you save face. Sure you want to refuse? Once we file a request, your team will be disbanded immediately." Trevor and Owen could tell. Logan wasn't ordinary. I hated this kind of nonsense. I quietly pulled Trevor behind me and faced Logan. "Last warning. Move." Logan burst out laughing. "I heard this class has several so-called teenage geniuses. You're as arrogant as they say. But do you know that everyone here follows the rules?" "Rules? Let's hear them," I asked with a smile. Logan was one of the Academy's best second-year criminal investigation students. His uncle was Metropolitan Police Commissioner Martin Caldwell. Once Logan graduated, he could join the Metropolitan Police Bureau directly. To most people, Logan was powerful. Even Owen and Trevor looked uneasy. But the next second, the defiant Logan suddenly went pale. I planted my palm on his face and shoved his head aside. Logan stumbled backward. Humiliated, he shouted, "You fucking pushed me? You're just Martin Caldwell's nephew, and you think you can swagger in front of me?" I stared at him. "Call your uncle and ask who Ethan Hayes is." I shoved Logan aside and left with Trevor and Owen. They followed behind me. I could feel their curiosity about my identity. Now they should understand why I didn't care about that commissioner. Logan's crew looked furious. "Stop," they shouted. I turned around. "Want to fight? When it's over, you'll be the ones expelled." I didn't mind using my status when necessary. The Hayes name gave me nothing to fear. Logan calmed down and kept wondering, who was Ethan Hayes? The Academy was full of talented heirs from powerful families. Then he remembered something. The serial case from over a month ago. His uncle had been furious about that 10-year-old case. Martin had been kept completely in the dark, while the man who solved it was Ethan Hayes, heir to the Hayes family. The Hayes family was the arch-rival of his uncle's backers. Logan finally understood and hurried after us. Forcing a smile, he asked, "You're the Hayes heir?" I glanced at him without answering. I only told Trevor and Owen, let's go. We walked away. Logan's face darkened, his ears burning with shame. Logan, you're just letting them leave? Solving this case would earn us major credit. Someone complained. Logan glared at him. Don't say I didn't warn you. Stay away from Ethan Hayes. He's heir to a 3-generation military and law enforcement dynasty in Crestfall. We can't afford to cross him. Everyone gasped. We reached the president's office after midnight. Henry hadn't slept. When we entered, he stood and smiled. What did you find? The victim is Ryan Parker. He died 2 months ago. We need his personal history to narrow the suspect pool. I answered. Henry nodded and pulled a file from his desk. I already prepared it. Don't stay up too late. We took it back to our dorm. Henry's file was thorough, covering Ryan's roommates and classmates. Trevor soon got a headache. Owen wasn't much better. He could examine a body all night, but paperwork put him right to sleep. I sat alone at the desk and read, focusing on Ryan's 2 roommates, and his girlfriend, Jessica Morgan. She was now an officer at Westbridge Precinct. I closed the file and wrote down 3 names: Jessica Morgan, Nolan Harper, and Adrian Knox. I locked up the file and went to bed. At 8 the next morning, someone woke us. Henry stood at the door with a girl. We got up. President Monroe, what brings you here so early? I'm introducing a new team member, Hazel Monroe. She's a freshman like you and just turned 17. The girl in a blue Doryman t-shirt stepped forward and smiled at me. Hi, Ethan. For the last month of summer, I heard your name almost every day. It's nice to finally meet you. I lightly shook her hand and looked at Henry, smiling knowingly. President Monroe, how is Hazel related to you? Henry cleared his throat awkwardly. Hazel looked completely unfazed. He's my grandpa, but that won't affect the work. I've reviewed the files. There are 3 main suspects. Ryan's girlfriend, Jessica Morgan. His hostile roommate, Nolan Harper. And Adrian Knox, who secretly loved Jessica. Trevor and Owen froze. I smiled. Hazel, welcome to the team. I'd spent all night identifying those same 3 leads. All 3 were close to Ryan. They seemed like obvious sources of information. But Hazel and I saw them as more than leads. The killer was likely among them. Henry had already left. Hazel stayed and glanced around the dorm. It's morning. What's our next move? I smiled and assigned everyone. Trevor, go find Adrian Knox with an officer. Owen, you find Nolan Harper. Hazel, you and I will find Jessica Morgan. That's probably exactly what President Monroe wanted. Sure, no problem. Hazel smiled. We quickly got ready and left the dorm together. On the way down, plenty of guys stared at Hazel. We ignored them and caught a cab at the gate. We sat in a coffee shop near Westbridge Precinct. I called Jessica. Officer Morgan, this is Ethan Hayes from Crestfall Police Academy. I'm sure you've heard about the murder. We need you to verify a few things. Jessica didn't sound surprised. She agreed and hung up. Hazel stirred her coffee. Ethan, why didn't Jessica contact the academy herself? How suspicious is she? Pursed my lips. Normally, she'd be the prime suspect. Her boyfriend died, yet she went to work as usual. But do you know why I sent Trevor and Owen after the other 2? Hazel frowned and shook her head. Simple. I ruled Jessica out last night. At least, she wasn't the one who bludgeoned Ryan to death. Hazel looked even more confused. To her, Jessica was still the most suspicious. Then Jessica appeared at the coffee shop entrance. She's here. I pointed out. Jessica came over and removed her police cap, revealing neat, short hair. She looked worn down, but still managed to smile. Hello, I'm Jessica Morgan. Have a seat, Officer Morgan. After she sat, a server brought her black coffee. Jessica stared at the cup and smiled bitterly. You even know I drink my coffee black. Is there anything about me you don't know? Or, in your minds, am I your prime suspect? Before you arrived, I told Hazel you weren't the killer. I said softly. Jessica stared at me, stunned. Why? I had the easiest access to him. And the best chance to kill him. Why rule me out? She clenched her jaw. From what I know, you 2 had a strong relationship. And you were Ryan's only girlfriend. Besides, the killer is a man. Unless you can sound like a man, I don't believe it was you. Hazel frowned. As an investigation student, she found it reckless to rule out a suspect so quickly. But what surprised her more was Jessica's sudden flood of tears. No, even if I didn't kill him, he probably died because of me. Ethan, I've heard about you. I never expected you to be the one who came. Someone as smart as you shouldn't waste time on me. I narrowed my eyes and asked without hesitation. So you think the killer is Nolan Harper or Adrian Knox? Was Adrian secretly in love with you? Hazel pressed. Jessica's bitter smile deepened. What if I told you Nolan and Adrian both pursued me? Would you believe me? Of course. You're strong and commanding like an officer, but still feminine. And like Ryan, you were one of last year's top students. Yes, last year's class had many outstanding students. Ryan Parker, Evan Ross, Olivia Perez. Even someone as talented as Nolan was only second tier. But there's something none of us expected. Ryan wasn't the only one who vanished this summer. Hazel and I both went pale. Jessica took out her phone. It showed calls to Ryan, Nolan, and Adrian. She'd called each of them over 100 times. That meant Ryan wasn't the only one missing. Nolan and Adrian had vanished too. I immediately called Trevor. Did you find Nolan? Don't ask Ethan. I got a bad feeling. Nolan's parents said that after graduation, just like Ryan, he went to teach in a remote mountain area. My expression settled. Got it, I said softly. I stared at my phone. Sure enough, Owen called. Before he could speak, I asked, did Adrian supposedly go teach too? Yes. How did you know? I just heard. I replied, then looked back at Jessica. She looked hollow and kept repeating, they're dead. They're all really dead. Hazel and I exchanged an anxious look. Officer Morgan, what exactly do you know? Did Nolan and Adrian disappear around the same time as Ryan? I pressed. Jessica went pale. Yes. A month ago, I heard Nolan had gone to teach. 2 weeks later, I heard the same about Adrian. I honestly believed it then. Then the academy told me last night that Ryan was dead. That's when I realized. Who told you they went to teach? I pressed. I called all 3 of them almost every day. When something felt wrong, I contacted their families. They all said the men had gone to remote mountain areas. They couldn't be reached, so I searched for them in Crestfall. Game cafes, esports centers, I even used my authority to check hotel records. There wasn't a single registration under their names anywhere in the country. Now that Ryan's dead, Nolan and Adrian will probably turn up soon. Jessica fell silent. Hazel and I asked, did the 3 men in room 314 have conflicts with anyone? I don't know. I really don't. Ethan, Hazel, no one wants the killer found more than I do. My boyfriend and my 2 best friends, all 3 of them. Jessica clenched her fists. I frowned. That doesn't add up. I heard Nolan and Ryan didn't get along. They didn't. Ryan also had a bad relationship with Adrian. But when trouble came, they trusted each other more than anyone. I could believe that. Every school has students like them. They normally can't stand each other, but if anyone targets one of them, they instantly close ranks. All right, Officer Morgan. We won't take more of your time. I had nothing else to ask. Jessica took a deep breath and stood. She started to leave, then turned back. Please find all 3 of them as soon as possible. Once they're together, I'll go see them. She left. Hazel watched her go. She's hiding something. Yeah, but it probably isn't related to the murders. I answered calmly. Hazel thought for a moment. Jessica's relationship with those 3 men seems complicated. Even if she missed Ryan, why call Nolan and Adrian hundreds of times? I smiled without answering and we headed back. To me, Nolan and Adrian had been the prime suspects. But the case had taken a completely unexpected turn. Anyone would have been shocked. No one saw this coming. Hazel looked grim in the cab. I smiled at her. What? Feeling defeated? Not exactly. I'm wondering what kind of person could take out 3 outstanding students like that. And where are Nolan and Adrian's bodies? I answered without thinking. At the academy. Hazel looked up. Every part of campus is crowded now. And after Ryan was found, they began a massive cleanup. If their bodies were there, someone should have found them. Besides the water tank, where else could someone hide bodies? I asked. Hazel frowned but couldn't think of anywhere. The cab fell silent. Then, Hazel and I received an academy alert. Today is the 2nd day of school and our annual tree planting day. All students must report to Academy Grove by 6 p.m. to plant your own academy tree. Tree planting was an academy tradition. Every freshman planted a sapling in Academy Grove. For years later, the tree would be grown, and the student would be ready to serve as an officer. Hazel read the alert with a bitter look. Who could think about planting trees now? She stopped and suddenly looked at me. But I was already calling to the driver. Step on it. We need to reach Academy Grove in 10 minutes. The cab soon reached the academy's rear gate. As we got out, we saw students gathering out back. Despite the murder, all other activities were continuing. I spotted Howard organizing the event and ran over. Director Briggs, stop the event for now. Howard frowned. Weren't you investigating Ryan's murder? Why are you here? Director Briggs, Nolan and Adrian are missing. Their parents say they went to teach just like Ryan. We believe Nolan and Adrian may also be dead. Their bodies may be hidden in these woods. Howard stared at me in disbelief. Nonsense. Ryan is the only one who died. How could Nolan and Adrian be victims too? Director Briggs, whether you believe us or not, we must stop the event to preserve the scene. Hazel backed me up. Howard thought it over. All right, search the woods. I'll send Academy security to help. Hazel and I nodded and ran toward the woods. I added, send Owen and Trevor in as soon as they return. Every student tree in Academy Grove represented one student. The tradition began under the current president. The grove had many trees, but only a small section belonged to students. We headed straight there. The killer had told Ryan's parents. They'd see him in 2 days. I'd assumed he only meant Ryan. Now I realized. He may have meant Nolan and Adrian too. He meant that in 2 days, all 3 families would see their sons' bodies. If that theory was right, Nolan and Adrian's bodies were likely hanging from the trees they'd planted. As we entered the student grove, a faint stench of decay drifted on the breeze. Hazel and I both knew the bodies were ahead. We reached Ryan, Nolan, and Adrian's adjacent trees. 2 decomposing bodies hung from the branches. Several crows perched above, pecking at them. As we moved closer, the crows took flight, cawing harshly. They really were here. Hazel sighed. I said nothing. I climbed Nolan's tree. When I reached his body, I immediately noticed his mouth was open. His tongue was gone, and an iron spike held his jaws apart. The scene played out in my mind. Nolan had been brought here alive and hung from the tree. To stop him from screaming, the killer cut out his tongue and used a spike to keep his mouth open. Below, Hazel searched the ground. She soon found dried pools of blood beneath both trees. From the branches, I checked the rest of Nolan's body and pulled down his pants. My eyes narrowed. If Trevor were here, he'd probably ask, "Where's his junk? Did the crows eat it?" I climbed Adrian's tree next. His tongue was also gone, and a spike held his mouth open. As for what should have been in his pants, that was missing too, just as I thought. Hazel didn't turn around. To Academy students, a victim was a victim regardless of sex. Unable to see clearly from below, she asked, "Same as Ryan?" Yes and no. Aside from his groin, Ryan's body wasn't deliberately mutilated. Nolan and Adrian were different. Besides their groins, their tongues were removed, probably to keep them quiet. As I spoke, Hazel said, "That explains it. There's a lot of dried blood below. The killer didn't give them a quick death. After removing their tongues, he opened their veins and nearly drained them dry." Ryan, Nolan, and Adrian were roommates. They sometimes fought but always stood up for one another. The first body was Ryan. We don't need DNA for these two. They're definitely Nolan and Adrian. They had no real enemies and weren't bullies. Why would anyone do this to them? And the biggest question, why was Ryan hidden in the dorm's water tank, while Nolan and Adrian were left in the grove? The killer had no reason to separate them. I spoke softly, my brow furrowed. When Nolan and Adrian's bodies were carried from the grove, the entire academy erupted. Ryan's death had already shaken the students and faculty. The media had covered it heavily before the academy contained the story. But with 2 more victims, the situation was beyond the academy's control. Henry called our 4-person team to his office. He looked more serious than ever. "We now have 3 victims. This is the worst incident in the academy's history. The Metropolitan Police Bureau has issued an order. They're taking full control. The academy will cooperate. And today, I'll submit my resignation." Owen and Trevor were horrified. "President Monroe, how is this your fault? A major crime happened during President Monroe's tenure. He's the academy's top administrator. He has no choice," I said with a sigh. Hazel looked deeply upset, but she didn't want to hurt her grandfather, so she comforted him. "Grandpa, don't worry. Even without direct authority, we'll still find the killer." Henry looked at each of us and smiled. "I believe you. Academy students solving an academy case would restore our honor and best serve the victims. All right, go keep working." We left the president's office. Hazel's eyes were red. "Don't be sad. President Monroe may still return." I spoke softly. Hazel bit her lip. Everything happened so fast. We had no time to prepare. Now we've even lost direct control of the case. "Ethan, tell me what we do next. We only have a few scattered clues." The same voice called all 3 families. Each caller claimed to have a cold, so the suspect may be male. Second, we don't change course. This case still centers on a romantic conflict. Third, and most importantly, we must learn why Ryan was hidden in the water tank, while Nolan and Adrian were left in the grove. Hazel suddenly understood. "You're right. We stay on course. The different locations must be crucial. To identify every difference between the bodies, we need to examine them again. Owen, before the Bureau takes full control, we need to move fast." As soon as I finished, the 4 of us rushed to the forensics lab, but several officers were already guarding the door. "You 4, stop. What are you doing here? They blocked us." Owen looked helpless. "Looks like they beat us here. It's fine. We'll force our way in if needed." Then I told the officers, "We're the academy students who originally handled Ryan Parker's case. We have crucial information for your medical examiners. You're that investigation team?" The officers seemed doubtful. I showed them my student ID. The moment they saw it, they smiled. "Oh, it's Mr. Hayes. Move aside. Let Mr. Hayes and his classmates through." Trevor and Owen were stunned by my status again. As the officers stepped aside, they finally asked, "Ethan, what exactly does your dad do?" He's a top law enforcement official. What about your grandpa? I turned back. With a strange smile. He's military brass. Damn, that's insane. Your dad's in law enforcement, and your grandpa's military? Don't tell me your mom and grandma are legends too. There's no point hiding it. My mom is a nationally renowned medical examiner. Grandma is nearly retired, but she's still a criminal investigation expert. Trevor and Owen's minds went blank. After a long pause, one thought finally surfaced. His whole family is full of monsters. I said nothing more. I pushed open the lab door. Inside, a familiar figure was moving among the three bodies, checking one area after another. I couldn't help smiling when I saw her, but after staring in shock, Owen grabbed Trevor's arm and stammered, "Oh my God, that's my idol. Trevor, pinch me. Am I dreaming?" Trevor smacked the back of his head. "What's wrong with you? There's no celebrity here. It's just some woman examining the bodies." "You idiot. Look at who's doing the examination. She's a leading authority in forensic medicine, one of the country's top forensic professors. She's—" Before Owen could finish, I walked over to her and called with a smile, "Mom, you should have told me you were coming. I never expected my mom, Chloe Whitmore, to be on the police forensics team." She looked at me with a broad smile. "Surprised? Very. But now it seems obvious. Grandpa was the Academy's first president, and Dad graduated from here, and I'm leading this case. Of course you'd come." Chloe came over and playfully scolded me. "Aren't you clever? I thought I'd have to wait until break to see you. I never expected something this serious to happen here." After listening to us talk, Owen finally approached, starstruck. "Professor Whitmore, I'm Ethan's roommate, Owen Blake. I'm a forensic science student, and I've always admired you. I finally get to meet you. Oh, I have a fan? Then tell me, does Ethan look like me?" Chloe asked eagerly. Owen nodded without hesitation. "Absolutely. He looks just like you. All right, back to work. Mom, you've been examining them for a while. What did you find?" I brought us back to the case. Chloe picked up a file from the table. "This is the autopsy report you gave President Monroe. This young man did the main examination, right? Take another careful look. Forensics demands care and precision. Your report missed something important." Owen froze. Trevor quickly kicked him in the shin. "What are you waiting for? This is the best time to learn. Professor Whitmore is giving you a chance." "Thank you, Professor Whitmore. I'll examine it again." Owen quickly changed into a lab coat and solemnly began re-examining Ryan Parker's body. Hazel, Trevor, and I stood aside and waited. Before long, Hazel said softly, "Ethan, I'm jealous of you." "What could you be jealous of?" "Not your family background. I'm jealous that you have such a great mom. She never sounds harsh, and she always puts you first. That's what I'm most jealous of." I understood. Hazel's mother was probably strict with her. "My mom is great in your eyes, but Dad would say, she spoils me rotten." I teased her. Hazel smiled and said nothing, quietly waiting for the results. After some time, when Owen finished re-examining Ryan's body, his expression changed. Trevor started to ask if he'd found something new, but I stopped him. We quietly waited as Owen examined Nolan and Adrian's bodies. After a long while, Owen finally stopped. He walked over to Chloe and bowed slightly. "Professor Whitmore, thank you for your guidance. I won't make this basic mistake again." The three of us came over. Chloe smiled and asked, "Then tell us, what did you miss?" I overlooked their internal organs. After examining the organs of all three bodies, we found signs of poisoning in each. It was chronic poisoning. Even if no one had killed them, the buildup of toxins might have killed them within a year or two. Owen's words revealed a new lead. All three victims had been poisoned for a long time before they died. "What kind of poison?" I asked. "They all had high levels of chloramphenicol. It's an antibiotic. It's mainly used to treat typhoid and salmonella, but long-term use can damage the digestive and nervous systems, as well as blood production, the liver, and other organs. In other words, if they kept taking it, their health would keep deteriorating and could eventually kill them." When Owen finished, Hazel's face lit up. "Academy students all eat in the cafeteria. There isn't another likely source." "Could be the water supply," Trevor suggested. I shook my head. "Not the water. Only the three men from room 314 were poisoned. If it came from the cafeteria, why wasn't anyone else poisoned?" Trevor asked. "So we need to find out why. Start with the cafeteria. Question everyone, especially about how Ryan and the other two ate differently from the other students. Then what are we waiting for? Let's hit the cafeteria. We can't let the police get there first." Trevor urged us on, but I stayed put. After thinking, I said, "If they were poisoned, why kill them too? Was it because graduation was near? Were they afraid the poison wouldn't work in time? The poisoner may not be the real killer." My words cooled everyone's excitement. "Right. Even if we find the poisoner, that doesn't prove he was the one who killed them. Chloe stayed in the lab. Owen didn't want to leave. He wanted to learn more from her. I agreed. Mom's reputation was legendary. What forensic student wouldn't want to learn from her? Trevor seemed to catch the same bug. Seeing Owen stay, he asked to stay too. Chloe was happy to have 2 assistants at her disposal, and let them both stay. Hazel and I left the lab. The officer smiled and nodded again. We smiled back. Then we hurried to find the next person to question. It was Howard Briggs, the facilities director. He was surprised to see us. Still, he smiled and asked, "What brings you two here?" "Director Briggs, we have a few questions about the cafeteria." "The cafeteria falls under your department, right?" I asked. Howard nodded. "The cafeteria is under my authority." "Go ahead. What do you want to know?" "With everything happening at school, I'm extremely busy. I want to know whether any students received special meals. For example, the meals Ryan and the other graduates ate. Were they different from everyone else's?" Howard immediately rejected the idea. "Impossible. The academy doesn't cook special meals for a few students. We never noticed anyone getting better or worse food than the others." "Is the cafeteria run by an outside contractor?" I asked another question. "It is, but what you're suggesting still couldn't happen." I saw no point in continuing, whether Howard was telling the truth or not. He had no reason to cover anything up. He might genuinely not know. Hazel and I thanked him and left. Outside the office, Hazel frowned and asked, "Are we really going straight to the cafeteria? Wouldn't that tip someone off?" "Did you forget? We have someone else who can give us a lead." I smiled. Hazel caught on almost immediately. "Right, Jessica Morgan. She was close to Ryan and the others. She must know something." We agreed and left campus. We contacted Jessica and met her at the same coffee shop. Even though we no longer led the investigation, Jessica's attitude hadn't changed. "You came to see me today. Did you find a new lead?" Jessica asked as soon as we met. I got straight to the point. "You probably know Nolan and Adrian's bodies were found. We're here about the poisoning of all 3 men." Jessica looked confused. "Poisoning?" "Yes. The latest autopsies show all 3 suffered long-term chloramphenicol poisoning. We think it may be related to their food. The cafeteria is the academy's only dining option. You were closest to them. You must know something." The moment I finished, Jessica's face changed sharply, though she quickly hid it. "Caught it." The look left me puzzled. Jessica spoke. "Are you sure the cafeteria is the only possibility?" Hazel and I nodded. Jessica continued, "If that's true, only one person could have poisoned them. He's a young cafeteria worker named Derek Shaw. He's in his early 20s and related to the cafeteria contractor. Derek is young, but he's extremely stingy. Whenever he served food, his portions were tiny. Ryan once fought with him over it. Later, Ryan, Nolan, and Adrian got fed up and cornered him for a beating. After that, Derek became unusually friendly whenever he saw them. He'd secretly give them special dishes he'd kept hidden. At first, they ignored him, but eventually they got used to it. For a while, Derek and the 3 men got along well. When Jessica finished, I smiled. "I knew we'd get a lot of information from you. If nothing changes, Derek is probably the poisoner." "All right, Jessica. Get back to work. We need to get back to campus." "Okay." Jessica answered and started to leave. But this time, she stopped again. I called her back. "Jessica, did you often eat with Ryan and the others?" I asked suddenly. Jessica turned back, her face calm. "Often, but not always. Don't worry. I'll get checked out at the hospital tomorrow." "Okay. Take care, Jessica," I said with a smile. Jessica left. Hazel watched her go and repeated what she'd said after our first meeting. "I still think she's strange." I only smiled and said nothing. I watched Jessica walk away and suddenly made a decision. After our brief meeting with Jessica, Hazel and I returned to campus. The campus was filled with more officers. They'd been assigned from the Metropolitan Police Bureau to handle the 3 deaths. Crestfall Police Academy trained the law enforcement system's best. A triple murder here demanded attention from the Bureau, even my father, Grant Hayes. Hazel and I planned to head straight to the cafeteria. But we met a middle-aged couple on the way. Their faces were filled with grief. Hazel and I exchanged a look. They were probably the parents of one of the 3 victims. I stepped forward. "Hello, sir, ma'am. I'm Ethan Hayes. I was one of the academy students assigned to Ryan Parker, Nolan Harper, and Adrian Knox's case. May I ask who you are?" "We're Ryan's parents. What do you need?" Ryan's father asked. But after looking us over, Ryan's mother said strangely, "Is the academy really this careless? How old are you two? How can you investigate a murder?" "Ma'am, Hazel and I are young, but the police got all their leads from our investigation. We stopped you because we wanted to ask what he said during that phone call. The person who called all 3 families was undoubtedly the killer. He mostly asked how we were doing. All I remember is him talking about how hard teaching was and telling us to take care of ourselves." I nodded. "Did you record it?" What date was the call? How long did it last? We never thought to record it. We only remember it was the 21st of last month. It lasted almost an hour. We all thought it was really Ryan. His voice had a heavy, congested, cold tone. But he sounded exactly like Ryan. I understand. I'm sorry for your loss. I asked nothing more. Ryan's parents left in sorrow. Hazel glanced at me. Let's go to the cafeteria. Not yet. Let's question Nolan and Adrian's parents too. I said that and hurried off to find the other two couples. They were all staying in the academy dorms. Ryan's family was the wealthiest. His father was a successful businessman worth over 100 million. Nolan's family was the poorest, a typical farming household. His parents were simple, honest people. Hazel and I asked the same questions. Was it recorded? How long was the call? What date was it? Every answer was the same. The calls came on the 21st of last month. The voice was male. He sounded badly congested, and every call lasted at least half an hour. Looks like we're close to the killer. You think so? When we left Adrian's parents' room, Hazel finally smiled. We must be close. Now we just need proof. I smiled softly too. But then, Trevor and Owen came sprinting toward us. Ethan. Hazel. The police arrested a cafeteria worker for murder. They're taking him to the bureau now. They shouted, gasping for breath. My brow furrowed at once. Who leaked it? Chloe couldn't have. It's only been a few hours since we discovered the poisoning. She could have kept it quiet. It was probably Director Briggs. After you asked Howard about the cafeteria, he immediately reported it to the police. We heard that once the police learned you were asking about the cafeteria, they started investigating the cafeteria staff. I sneered. Martin's people were great at chasing easy wins. I was interested in Derek Shaw. But since they caught him, let them. Don't blame me when they embarrass themselves. I turned and walked back. Hazel followed closely and asked softly, You're not going to check? What's there to see? Derek poisoned them. He can't escape and he deserves to be caught. Besides, Hazel, why are you still following me? Hazel paused. To investigate. Investigate what? We're not made of steel. We've barely eaten or slept for 2 days. We need rest. Of course, if you don't like the girls' dorm, my room would be happy to have you. Hazel rolled her eyes at my grin. She tossed over her shoulder as she walked away. In your dreams. I'd spent 2 straight days on the academy murders. Hazel thought I was only pretending to go rest. But I really did sleep the whole time. I didn't wake up until dark. Hazel had come looking for me, but had already left the men's dorm. I stretched lazily and spotted food on the desk. I looked over curiously. You hadn't eaten, so I bought this. Don't thank me. The neat handwriting was clearly a girl's. I smiled, opened the lunchbox, and felt some warmth inside. I happily dug in. A full stomach means I can work. It was pitch black outside. Trevor and Owen were gone. I left the dorm alone and walked off campus. I hailed a cab at the gate and gave the driver an address. Maplewood Estates. When we arrived, the place felt strangely familiar. I went straight to Building A3. I took the elevator to the 12th floor and knocked on a door. When no one answered, I took something from my pocket. 2 or 3 seconds later, the door opened. I stepped inside. A faint, clean fragrance hung in the air. Everything was arranged like a woman's home. Few people would have guessed. I come to Jessica's place that night. At first, her home seemed ordinary. But I wasn't in a hurry. Meeting Jessica earlier had left me with an uneasy feeling about her. By my earlier assessment, Jessica was the least suspicious person. But least suspicious doesn't mean innocent. I never rule out anyone connected to a case. I came while she was away, to see whether I could find anything new. After checking the living room, I went into the bedroom. The room was simply furnished, except for one huge wardrobe. The wardrobe immediately made me curious. From what I knew, Jessica had been carefree as a student. She wasn't into clothes, shoes, or makeup, the things most girls liked. She had no need for a wardrobe this large. It made the room feel cramped. That didn't fit her style. I slowly approached it. I opened the door. Jessica's clothes hung inside. Mostly black and white t-shirts and casual wear. I glanced inside and saw nothing unusual. I pulled my hand back to close it, then caught a scent. Something about the smell seemed off. So I pushed the clothes aside one by one. I smelled sandalwood inside. As I moved the clothes, the sandalwood grew stronger. Looking closer, I found a hidden compartment behind the clothes. I opened it at once. What I saw made my heart skip. 2 electric candles cast a faint glow. The sandalwood was coming from a small incense burner. The incense burner was full of ash, probably from at least a month or 2. I reached into the ash, but my eyes stayed fixed on the 2 photos hanging inside the compartment. They showed 2 young men in their 20s, both wearing bright, youthful smiles. They were Adrian Knox and Nolan Harper, later found in the Grove. But if she had their photos, why was Ryan Parker's missing? This was Jessica's home. Even if she was honoring the dead, Ryan should have come first. Why display only Nolan and Adrian's photos? Would friends really pay their respects like this every day? It's not that I don't believe in friendship, but how many friends would actually hang up portraits, burn incense, and pray every day? It felt like I just uncovered another layer of the case. I'd always treated Ryan, Nolan, and Adrian as one case. Until Nolan and Adrian's bodies were found, I first considered separating them, but that was only an idea. I hadn't acted on it. Now, seeing whom Jessica honored in her home, I realized I was facing a real opponent. Ryan's case had to be separated from Nolan and Adrian's. If we kept treating all three deaths as one case, we might never solve any of them. I stared at the two photos and thought, why hadn't Jessica honored Ryan, her boyfriend? Was Ryan still alive? Impossible. The autopsy was conclusive. Ryan was dead. The rats had chewed his body beyond recognition. Could the killer who murdered Nolan and Adrian be different from the one who killed Ryan? Jessica, congratulations. You're my prime suspect again. I quietly closed the compartment and put the clothes back. Once I was sure nothing looked suspicious, I checked the time. It was almost 9. Jessica would be off work soon. After checking carefully for cameras, I opened the door and left. Jessica came home a little later. She turned on the lights and took off her uniform. She opened the wardrobe, moved aside the clothes, and lit a coil of sandalwood incense. Smoke curled upward as Jessica stood silently. She neither spoke nor moved. No one knew. She did this every day. After standing for an hour, she would bow slightly to the photos and say goodnight. The night seemed to pass peacefully. On my way back to campus, Owen called. Ethan, where are you? Why is no one in the dorm? Campus was suffocating, so I went out for a walk. What's up? Professor Whitmore and I conducted a deeper examination of the 3 bodies. We found something new. Get back here. I told the driver to hurry back to campus and went straight to the lab. When I entered, Owen said excitedly, you were right. Ryan, Nolan, and Adrian died at different times. Nolan and Adrian died first. Ryan died last, just as I thought. Can we determine the gap between their deaths? Exact figures are difficult, but the gap between them should be less than 5 days. Chloe added. I nodded. I glanced around the lab and suddenly asked, where's Hazel? She hasn't come by. I just called her. She seems to be out too. I asked no more and pulled Chloe aside. Mom, you're a woman. Help me figure this out. Why would a woman not honor her dead boyfriend, but honor his 2 best friends instead? Chloe frowned. You mean Jessica? She didn't honor Ryan, only Nolan and Adrian? Yes, you're a woman. You understand women better than I do. Chloe lowered her head and thought for a moment, then shook it harder. Ryan has only been dead for 3 days. Shouldn't she still be grieving? Why would she be holding a memorial already? She's been doing it for a month or 2. Chloe's face changed. For a month or 2. If that's true, wouldn't she be the prime suspect? Exactly. But the caller was a man. Jessica was one of last year's top students, with an exceptional investigative mind. She could fight and even knew some forensics. She was a well-rounded student. Could she have disguised her voice? Chloe didn't know how to answer. She could hardly believe it herself. She'd met Jessica earlier that day. Jessica had come to see the 3 victims. Chloe had actually liked the girl, especially after learning how outstanding she was at the academy. But now everything suggested Jessica's suspicion was growing. Aside from the voice mismatch, Jessica had every advantage the killer needed. She must have been the person the 3 men trusted most, and the one best able to kill them without raising suspicion. Chloe finally looked up. Ryan clearly wasn't the man she truly loved. She must have truly loved either Nolan or Adrian. I even suspect she may have hated Ryan. Otherwise, none of this made sense. Women have an intuition about other women. I treated Mom's theory as a possibility, but I never expected Hazel, who had been gone all this time, to return then. She burst into the lab without knocking. Breathless, she called, Ethan, I found a major lead. Last semester, Ryan spent a month studying in the United States. After he returned, Jessica may have become pregnant. I immediately walked up to Hazel. Where did this come from? A girl from last year's class who couldn't stand Jessica. We've been investigating their circle, right? I looked in the opposite direction and found this. And it gets better. While Ryan was abroad, Jessica was absent from campus one night, Adrian's birthday. The other 2 men from room 314 were absent too. 2 weeks after Ryan returned, Jessica took a week-long leave. 5 days after it ended, the academy went on break. I began organizing Hazel's clues. Jessica may have been pregnant. None of the 3 men were on campus on Adrian's birthday. Jessica took leave after Ryan returned. If the pregnancy was real, she probably spent that week dealing with it. If she did, it must have been because Ryan found out. Then, could something have happened during Ryan's month away? Could Jessica's relationship with Nolan or Adrian have subtly changed? Could friendship have turned romantic? After Ryan found out, he may have killed Nolan and Adrian in rage. Then Jessica, after learning what happened, killed Ryan. If all these theories were true, Jessica was terrifying. She'd been acting for the past month or two. Not a single day was missed. Her call log showed. She called Nolan, Adrian, and Ryan every day. Each call rang for at least 10 seconds. And most incredible of all, Jessica never helped dispose of Nolan and Adrian's bodies. Was she afraid that would expose Ryan's murder? One theory after another flashed through my mind. But no one expected the police to burst in then. He sounded thrilled. Professor Whitmore, Mr. Hayes, we've found the killer. It's cafeteria worker Derek Shaw. The bureau just called. Derek has confessed. Derek confessed? Everyone in the lab looked stunned. In their minds, Derek Shaw couldn't possibly be the real killer. Unless he feared the poison wouldn't kill them before graduation. But could Derek really slaughter 3 academy students at once? I didn't believe it. Ever since I left Jessica's home, I'd been convinced there were 2 killers. Why would Derek confess? After the officer left, Hazel immediately said, "Impossible. Derek isn't the killer. He may be indirectly responsible for their deaths, but he's not the real killer. The bureau must be desperate to show the public it can do its job. If nothing changes, every newspaper will report Derek's arrest tomorrow morning. They may even hold a press conference themselves. A lot of people are watching this case," Chloe said. I gave a cold smirk. Let Martin play his game. We still have tonight. If he dares hold that press conference tomorrow and gives me an opening, Martin can forget about ever moving up in politics. I support that. But Ethan, we may not even have 12 hours left. I said nothing. I stared at the 3 bodies and said, "Hazel, let's find the girl you spoke to earlier." Hazel didn't know why, but she nodded. She hurried out. We took Chloe's car. We reached an apartment building in East Crest. Hazel made a call. Soon, a girl came downstairs. After getting in, the girl asked curiously, "What else do you need, underclassmen? I've already told you everything I know. I'm the one who needs to ask you. There are a few things we need clarified." I smiled. The girl looked at me. "All right, since you're such a handsome underclassman, I'll tell you everything." I didn't take the flattery seriously. "What made you think Jessica was pregnant?" "We were classmates. Before taking leave, she often dry-heaved. Then she suddenly took 7 days off. That's why I suspected it." I nodded. "All right. How did you know Jessica was involved with Nolan and Adrian?" "It wasn't really a secret. A lot of people knew." The next day, Jessica was arguing with Nolan and Adrian. She kept asking, "Who was it?" I understood a little more and smiled. "One last question. What do you think of Jessica?" "Jessica? I really don't like her, and I think she's stuck up. But I have to admit, her grades were outstanding. She's practically a criminal investigation genius. During every mock case at school, she identified the killer 7 times out of 10. Then what about you? If Jessica committed a crime, what do you think she'd be capable of?" I asked with a smile. "No one would suspect her. Even if they did, they'd dismiss the possibility immediately." I asked no more. "All right, thanks for the information. We'll buy you dinner sometime." The girl smiled and nodded. But just before getting out, she asked, "If you can, don't buy me dinner. Could you let me see Ryan? I can promise you may see him tomorrow." "Okay." The girl got out and left. To Hazel, the conversation hadn't revealed anything useful, but she saw something on my face. Confidence. "Do you have a new theory?" Hazel asked. "I'm certain Jessica killed Ryan. As for Nolan and Adrian, Ryan probably killed them." I said it. Hazel didn't immediately ask why. Instead, she worked it out herself. On Adrian's birthday, Jessica slept with Nolan and Adrian, then became pregnant. Ryan found out. The files show. Ryan was not only brilliant but arrogant. He couldn't tolerate it, so he killed Nolan and Adrian. But Jessica may already have been deeply involved with either Nolan or Adrian. So in her anguish, she set a trap and killed Ryan. Then she staged everything, right? I didn't answer. Instead, I suddenly felt I'd missed something. As I kept wondering what it was, a passage suddenly came to me. In the capital lived a master ventriloquist, entertaining guests at a grand feast. He sat in the northeast corner of the main hall. Most students knew the passage. It was called The Ventriloquist. When I visited Jessica's home tonight, a calligraphy scroll hung on the wall, contained that same passage. The signature belonged to someone, whose last name was also Morgan. That calligraphy now seemed crucial. Couldn't serve as evidence, but it was my strongest reason for believing Jessica was the killer. "Come on, back to the lab," I said. Hazel looked at me. "You don't still want to search the bodies for clues, do you? The bodies are our only chance. We don't have time for anything else. Someone as capable as Jessica wouldn't leave evidence behind. But Jessica was smart and Ryan was smart too. Unless that hammer killed him instantly, he must have left something behind. One blow could kill him. But what if Ryan didn't die on the spot? He may have struggled. And there's still the primary crime scene. We've never found it. Where is it? Maybe it's hidden where no one would think to look. Where was the rejected primary crime scene? The rooftop, the place Trevor ruled out. Hazel and I rushed back to campus. We went straight to the lab. Chloe saw us and immediately asked, "Did you find evidence?" I shook my head. "No, but I'm certain Jessica was involved." "Mom, you and Owen keep working for a while. Give the bodies an even more thorough examination. Focus on the fingernails and mouths. Trevor, prepare a luminol solution." "You found the primary crime scene?" "I'm not sure, but I want to use luminol on the roof and see whether it was the original crime scene. Luminol isn't hard to mix, but its glow from blood is extremely faint. It has to be used in darkness or near total shade." It was already late at night. Trevor and Owen immediately went to prepare it. Once it was ready, Owen stayed to help Chloe. I took Trevor and Hazel to the roof of Dorm B. We had only a limited amount. There wasn't time to make much more. The three of us reached the roof. Trevor and Hazel both looked at me, as if asking where to spray first. I looked around. Jessica could fight, but she probably couldn't carry a body into the tank. If she wanted Ryan to die without warning, the space beyond this iron door was the perfect hiding place. "Trevor, spray in a straight line from the iron door to the tank." Trevor nodded and took the solution. He sprayed it little by little along the line I indicated. If there had ever been blood on the ground, it would show no matter how well it was cleaned or how long ago it happened. The solution slowly reached toward the tank. Before Trevor reached the tank, tiny points of light began glowing on the ground. One glowing area kept spreading. I immediately took out my phone and started recording. A pair of glowing footprints appeared before us. I shouted at once, "Hazel, what size shoes did Ryan wear?" "I think a 13. "What size are these?" "Probably a 7. Hazel's face lit up with excitement. A pair of size 7 footprints had appeared. It was incredible evidence. Footprints that small rarely belonged to a man. I'd observed that. Jessica's feet were large for a woman. A size 7 was considered large for a woman. I moved closer and photographed the prints. More footprints slowly appeared. They faded as they went on. The soles had picked up blood, which gradually wore off. When Trevor sprayed around the base of the tank, I called out, "Spray around the tank too. Let's see if the weapon's outline appears." Trevor nodded. Before he could finish, the outline of half a hammer appeared. I smiled and stopped recording. Then I called Chloe. "Mom, no need to examine them anymore. Has the Bureau confirmed the press conference?" "Yes. Tomorrow at 9 a.m. on the Crestfall Police Academy field." Chloe answered. "Good. We're done for tonight. First thing tomorrow, I'll invite Jessica to the press conference." The night flew by. By morning, the sun was shining. Crestfall Police Academy had dominated the news lately. Today it was packed and noisy. Students gathered on the field early to await the press conference. I got up at 7. The first thing I did was call Jessica. She answered quickly. I said, "Jessica, we found the real killer. The Bureau is holding a press conference at the Academy today to reveal the truth. Today you'll finally get closure." Jessica fell silent for a few seconds. Then she said heavily, "Ethan, thank you. It's our job." I hung up and got dressed. Then I called Trevor and Owen downstairs. The field was packed. Trevor said, "Almost every student is here. I think I see President Monroe in the crowd." Owen pointed, and Hazel immediately ran over. I smiled. "Let's go say hello too." Henry wasn't seated with the administrators. He stood among the students. A major murder case had happened during his tenure. He hadn't caused it, but I knew. The Academy president's top duty was preventing student crime. The Academy could produce geniuses, but also exceptionally gifted criminals. It was an unwritten, unspoken rule. The three of us greeted Henry. He looked tired but still alert. Sharp eyes. "Now take a good look. Will today's press conference become a joke?" Henry hadn't become president through seniority. My grandpa was the first president back when qualified leaders were scarce. That's why his tenure was brief. Law enforcement now had plenty of talent. Henry was old, but still among the very best in his field. Hazel and I watched the Bureau officials take their seats. As reporters set up their cameras, I smiled. "We won't have to wait. Everything will unravel today." Henry stared at me in surprise. Then his eyes lit up. "What? You found the killer?" We all nodded while I scanned the crowd. When I spotted a familiar figure, I walked over. "Jessica, you made it. Want me to find you a seat?" Jessica smiled and shook her head. "Academy graduates aren't that delicate. I'll stand with you and wait for the verdict." "Yeah. I just never imagined a cafeteria worker could do something like this." I sighed. Who would have guessed? Maybe the Academy rubbed off on him. He spent every day around law enforcement prodigies. Maybe he learned enough to pull it off. A true criminal mastermind can be the obvious killer, yet no one wants to believe it. Jessica seemed to sigh. I asked pointedly, "Well said, Jessica. I've always believed killers hide where we least expect them." Jessica turned toward me, about to speak, but a bureau official tapped the microphone. Testing. Members of the media, Academy faculty and students, good morning. I'm Deputy Commissioner Peter Lang. Today's press conference concerns one matter, the 901 rooftop body case, and the 903 Grove body case. After Peter's opening remarks, a reporter immediately asked, Deputy Commissioner Lang, these two Academy cases have recently caused an uproar across major news sites. Has the killer already been arrested? If so, will you reveal the killer's identity today? To the Academy administrators, after these two cases, did the former president resign to take responsibility? Deputy Commissioner Lang, Academy officials, 3 people have died. The public impact has been enormous. How will the Academy prevent this from happening again? The reporters talked over one another. Deputy Commissioner Lang, clearly in charge, raised a hand. Please settle down. I'll answer each question. Since these crimes occurred, City Secretary Samuel Hart and Commissioner Martin Caldwell have treated them with utmost urgency, especially Commissioner Caldwell. He barely slept for 3 days and nights. Fortunately, his hard work paid off. As many expected, the killer was hiding inside the Academy. The bodies of Ryan Parker, Nolan Harper, and Adrian Knox all showed conclusive evidence of prolonged chloramphenicol exposure. Last semester, the meals served to Ryan, Nolan, and Adrian were repeatedly poisoned by cafeteria worker Derek Shaw. After discovering this lead, our bureau carried out a careful operation and successfully arrested Derek Shaw. Peter spoke with dramatic conviction, but the reporters weren't fools. One asked, if he was already poisoning them, why brutally murder all 3 near the start of break? Because all 3 were graduating. The chloramphenicol buildup wasn't yet fatal. Before the poisoning began, a minor dispute led the 3 men to beat Derek. He held a grudge and couldn't wait any longer. So during the first 2 days of break, he murdered the 3 students one by one. They had a motive and a timeline. They'd explained the entire crime. The reporters fell silent. Fear crossed the students' faces. They ate cafeteria food every day too. What if they'd offended Derek and been poisoned without knowing? The students grew restless, while the victim's parents sobbed uncontrollably. But no one noticed me grab Jessica's wrist and lead her forward. Her eyes were red, her face full of grief, but my touch caught her completely off guard. Before she could ask why, I shouted toward the stage, Deputy Commissioner Lang, Derek only poisoned them. Who told you he murdered Ryan and the other 2?